All right, everybody. How you doing? It's News Debate. I am Lee, live over on Twitter Spaces, live on stereo, and sending video to twitch.tv/NEWZ debate and rumble.com/user/NEWZ debate. Want to give a nice shout out to Better Vibes, first in the room, followed by Noble Ron, two of my favorite people, supporters of mine at patreon.com/NEWZ debate. Better Vibes, I see you're a listener. I've tried to invite you as a speaker. Please join us as a speaker if you can. Right now, Ron is a speaker. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing okay. Great. Great. How are you doing, Lee?
I am well. I'm a little under the weather. I think that's kind of happening to a lot of people right now. I was mostly fine this week. Today did not feel great, but I feel better now than I did earlier today. So I'll call that progress. Happy holidays to you, Ron.
Yes, happy holidays to you too. I wanted to say, can you believe that I haven't been sick in 10 years?
Sorry, you haven't what in 10 years? We can insert a lot of
I
funny things there, but I didn't hear it. What hasn't
haven't
happened in
been
10
sick in
years?
10 years.
Man, I hope this is not an indication of the rest of the show. I did not hear you at all. Can you just repeat that entire thing, Ron?
I haven't been sick in 10 years.
Oh, wow. That's nice. 10
So you're having
years.
problems with my
Look,
audio?
everybody. It's not coming through super great. I'm not sure if that's your end or my end, or if Elon Musk is hitting us in the crotch right now repeatedly.
Or will you
Okay,
come
so you
back?
haven't been sick in 10 years, Ron. What's your secret to success?
Secret is to have a good heart and derived from our lack of being able to forgive, holding grudges, holding hate, or having hate. And live with love in your heart, you can kind of float on by. Some
Well,
people are going to say
you
that.
are living the life. You haven't been sick in 10 years. The internet gods are not being very kind to us right now. I'm hearing about half of that, but I think I got the gist. So, Ron, you would equate your success of not being sick in the last 10 years to emotional well being and being full of
Yeah,
love rather than something physical like vaccines or taking vitamin C, like a lot of people do.
correct. Correct. It's mostly a wellness habits instead of pharmaceutical habits. Leaning on scientific.
Oh man, this is rough. Ron, if there's anything you can do on your end to get closer to your internet,
Unbelievable.
I'm kind of stuck where I am. I'm not sure what it is, but we'll try to improve on that. It's interesting. Yeah, the idea of, well, in the US, we don't really care about preventative care. We don't really incentivize preventative care the way that every other advanced nation does. We don't have national health care. I mean, it's pretty clear. But emotional well being is also something we usually never, maybe here and there, emphasize. And it's really interesting. It's fascinating that you're leading with the emotional well being, which we know does have an effect on your health. But usually, when we talk about, not getting sick and stuff, vaccines, healthy lifestyle, not saying that you don't get vaccines and don't have a healthy lifestyle, but you are really focused on the emotional side of things. And that's great because I think a lot of people who are very fit, fitter than I, don't often consider the emotional side of things. I mean, we are, you know, a country that doesn't protect its workers like pretty much every other industrialized nation. There's a spectrum there, but we're certainly on one side of it. And yeah, this is the age old argument that comes up when you talk about healthcare. It's, well, okay, vaccinations, see your doctor, maybe take your vitamins. Um, but also the emotional side of things. I mean, that has a clear effect on our health, right, Ron? Yes. Yes, it does. Yes, it does, Lee. You are a very smart man. Ron is still with us, but he is now a speaker. All right, let's see if this cleared up, Ron.
Yes. How's that?
Sounds better thus far.
Okay.
As I assume you've seen a doctor in the last 10 years, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you shared this winning streak of 10 years or however long it was the last time you saw a doctor of not being sick?
Yes, I haven't had to really see a doctor, and there's people that know about this, and they agree with my assessment of it being emotional well-being instead of pharmaceutical. A lot of that time, of course, the pandemic, a lot of that, even after, more isolated, but even before then, from 15 to 20, I was outside a lot, of course. So we can't say that it's just isolation, but it makes me kind of happy to know that I feel very grateful. Um, and Yeah, it's really nice. It's nice to be here on a Friday night before Thanksgiving, holidays again. And when I was a kid, you kind of have a lack of a concept of time. And I remember being about to turn 4, I think, and it was like you want to go see Santa Claus, and I thought he's here already because you just don't have any concept of time. And I think as you get older, the holidays come around faster each year. But it's nice to be here with you, Lee. And can you describe what this military order stuff is about?
Oh, yeah. So I was thinking we could talk about that. We don't have to get to it right now. But boy, is that juicy. Let's table it for now and go with what you're throwing out there. So it's interesting that you mentioned both Santa Claus and Thanksgiving. In my experience, other countries that don't have as important a Thanksgiving or just don't do Thanksgiving at all, I think Canada has one, maybe some other country. Thanksgiving is what really protects us from a November Christmas celebration. In other countries, when you don't have anything major in November, they go straight from Halloween to Christmas. And I think to a lot of people that actually would be quite nice. I'm not anti Christmas. I love Thanksgiving. But we would have even more Christmas in November, in which case, oh, Santa's here already. We're already talking about mall Santa, if that's still a thing.
Right.
The only reason
Yeah,
we're
more
really
friendly.
protected by that is because of Thanksgiving.
Canada does have Thanksgiving, but it's before Halloween, I think, like a week before Halloween or a week after, maybe a week after, or is it after? It might be before Halloween. I forgot. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, no, I hear you. Let's look that up. Why keep guessing? You could be right. I just didn't realize. I know Canadian Thanksgiving is different than ours and it is a different date, but when is Canadian Thanksgiving? I share my chat GPT screen over on my Twitch and Rumble streams. Canadian Thanksgiving lands on the second Monday in October each year. Congratulations, Ron.
Oh,
It's
you on a
basically
Sunday.
autumn's halftime show in Canada, timed with the harvest season rather than any specific historical moments. It's a long story, but American Thanksgiving is tied to an actual moment in history. If you trace holidays by celestial mechanics or harvest cycles, it sits in a pretty sensible spot on the calendar. Well, thanks for that commentary, ChatGPT.
Excellent. And does it say? I think it was made officially a holiday by FDR. Is that true?
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Thanksgiving in the US used to be a hot mess. It used to be celebrated in some states, but not others, and it was different days in different states. I think you're right. I think it was FDR
It's an
that kind of
interesting
made it
holiday.
more what we know now.
It's an interesting holiday if you think about it. I mean, it's kind of like Christmas without the presents, without the pressure of the presents.
Yeah, no, it's exactly the same thing. You gather with family or friends and or friends,
You've
and
heard
you have a big
you've heard
meal. I
yeah,
think most of us would agree the meal for Thanksgiving is actually more important than Christmas. And then so if you take the Christmas presents outside, if you take the Christmas presents away from Christmas, you are just left with a meal. So that would probably be more important, like it is with Thanksgiving. So Franklin Delano Roosevelt didn't create Thanksgiving, but he did tinker with it in a way that only a president with a stubborn streak and a love of economic tinkering would. I don't know what it is about ChatGPT, but it's really festive today. For most of U.S. history, Thanksgiving was a tradition rather than a fixed federal holiday. Presidents proclaimed it each year, usually for the last Thursday in November, a pattern set by Abraham Lincoln in 1863. Roosevelt tried to shift it in 1939. um, Obviously, other things going on in 1939, but he still had
really
time to worry that a late Thanksgiving would shorten the Christmas shopping season during the Depression. He moved it 1 week earlier. Retailers cheered, and about half the country followed the new date. The rest stuck with the old date and mockingly called the new date Franksgiving. Hey, that's clever. It was a calendar civil war on a very silly battlefield. I don't know if I'm liking the way ChatGPT is talking now. It's kind of ridiculous. After a few years on this split reality, Congress stepped in. So in 1941, when lots of things were going on, lawmakers passed a resolution signed by FDR that officially set Thanksgiving as the fourth Thursday of November. That's when Thanksgiving finally became a legally standardized federal holiday.
that's awesome. Hold on, give me a few minutes. I gotta feed my cat.
Yeah, speaking of meal, that festy feline needs some food too. All right, so
Oh,
we'll
never
hear
mind.
more from Noble Ron. Oh, hey, Bjorn's over on stereo. Apologies,
Ooh,
Bjorn. I did not see you. I see you now. I'm adding
see,
you
couple
as
points.
a speaker. Well, oh no, we're hearing the call sound over on stereo. Turn that down. Do you do anything special for your cat or cats for Thanksgiving, Ron? Do you give them like a little extra food or like special food? I have no pets. So what's the Thanksgiving for pets in the Noble Ron house?
Oh, this is if I keep her, it's gonna be my first cat. She's a stray. This is the first day with her, but she's very sweet and she appreciates. I think she loves me already. And I ordered some tuna, and so I don't. I remember when I had dogs for Christmas, we had stockings for them, and they really treated it like there was two dogs, and they treated it as if they were getting a gift. It would, be the stocking would have bones and whatever pig ears, and they would just go through it, and it seemed like they understood that they were getting a treat from Santa. But I'm sure they just were like, "Here's some bones," and it was nice to watch that.
It's a great tradition. I just really hope that there was never a Christmas when Ronnie went over there and grabbed his stocking and he was like, "Oh no, I've been a terrible boy this year. Bones and pig ears. What did I do?" Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's the dog's stocking. Oh, here's mine. Bunch of Snickers bars. Everything's good. Hey, I got away with all my bad deeds this year. All right, Ron, stay with us. Let's jump over to Bjorn over on stereo. Great to have you with us, Bjorn, another patreon.com/slash NEWZ debate supporter, good friend of the show, solid guy, lives in the Pacific Northwest. We'll eventually probably get to a lot of stuff, Bjorn, but how are you doing? And what are your thoughts on the impending Thanksgiving holiday? I think you might have been live a moment ago. There you go. Now you're unmuted.
Oh, can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, I was just saying
We do.
I'm excited. I'm excited for some hashtag Bjorn pie because that's how you know the season is alive. Bjorn starts making pies.
Yes, we have a nice picture. I'll bring it up over on my Discord server. Join Discord for free by going to bit.ly/NEWZ debate. You posted a pie here recently. I should have connected the two. Clearly, that means Thanksgiving is nearly upon us. Um, do you wish that Thanksgiving was maybe a different time of the year earlier so that we would have more Christmas in November, as I think many countries do? Or is it nice to have Halloween its own month, Thanksgiving pretty much its own month, and then Christmas the very end of November plus most of December?
Yeah, I mean, I like a little bit of the separation because I think it can get warming. I think a lot of people are already even the day after um, Halloween are already putting up like Christmas lights, and it's like whoa. So at least in my neighborhood, there's already Christmas stuff going up. The other thing for us is we have like to throw in some Hanukkah action. So Hanukkah is also there. So sometimes we're like, it depends on when Hanukkah lands. We don't do like Christmas until after Hanukkah's over. So I think it ends pretty late this time. So we're probably going to do a mixture, but we'll see how it goes.
Chris Musica, Honimus. I think Chris Musica sounds preferable there. So yeah, your wife's from
Some people
Israel,
say
and following
Chrismica.
the. I'm sorry, continue. Chrismica. There we
Some
are.
people say
Thank you.
Chrismica,
Um,
but my wife hates that.
yeah, that's definitely well, okay. Well, let's not tell her, but that's definitely preferable to whatever just came out of my mouth. So your wife's from Israel, and according to just a standard reading of traditional Jewish law, Jewishness, however we want to describe that. Your kids are thus Jewish because the mother is the deciding factor. If you have a mixed Jewish, non-Jewish couple and the father's Jewish, okay, maybe you can still consider them Jewish. But correct me if I'm wrong. The more traditional reading is that if the mother's Jewish and the father is not, the kids are some of God's chosen people. The reason I bring this up is because Hanukkah, correct me if I'm wrong, is a holiday that actually is not as important as it appears in the US. I think Hanukkah gets a big boost because it happens around the same time as Christmas. But if you actually look at Jewish holidays, it's not the highest on the ranking the way that like Christmas, I would argue, is. So, do you agree with that assessment? Is that an issue at all? I'm just asking because we have the opportunity here. I feel like it would be great if Jews were like, yeah, Hanukkah's awesome, but isn't it Yom Kippur or something else is even more important?
Yeah, I think Yom Kippur and Passover is probably like one of the biggest holidays. So that's the one that's that. But like the Israelis, they definitely don't celebrate Hanukkah that much, and it's only celebrated by American Jews because of the timing. And oftentimes, it's like the Christmas uh, spirits, commercialism, insanity, just kind of has bled over, I think, a little bit. And I think the kids uh, who are Jewish, like, were felt a little left out. My wife said that she thought, like, when she was a kid, that like Santa would fly over her house and just not bring her presents. Um, and so, because they didn't celebrate Hanukkah and they didn't do presents even in her household, and so um, she kind of resisted that a little bit in our house. But then, clearly, like Christmas started like um, overshadowing Hanukkah, so we started doing Hanukkah presents now because we wanted to kind of balance the two holidays a little bit, if that makes sense.
So, are Hanukkah presents just Christmas presents with a different name, or are they slightly different? What are you looking for when you get Hanukkah presents?
Uh, I don't think I know. I think they're just the same. They seem to be like maybe a little bit different because there's like 8 of them, so they're like um, I don't know. My wife just got like little ones last year, so maybe we'll get like bigger ones. We're still filling it out as a family. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's work in progress, everybody. Okay, so we can continue talking about Thanksgiving. I didn't even think about it because we're not super close to Thanksgiving, and hopefully, I'll do more shows in the next several days that we would, be technically on the calendar closer. But thank you for bringing this up, Ron, and thank you for the comments over from Bjorn. Does anyone have any burning hot takes? I was looking at this unlawful military orders thing where Trump is making a lot of threats now, and Democrats are getting pissed off. But that's just one idea. What's on people's minds right now? And dead silence. Let's go with Ron. Ron was here first. Ron, do you have any topics that you want to tackle right now? A swing and a miss. All right, we're going to go back over to Bjorn over on Stereo. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I think I think to me the thing that's been kind of a little bit wild lately in the last seems like last year, the last like 48 hours, there's been a couple of those pretty harsh treatment of women reporters by Trump. There was one on the plane where she was asking a question about, I think about Epstein or something, and he just said like, "Quiet, piggy, quiet, quiet." And there was another person who was asking, I think about the sedition comments and like I think it was the sedition and the hanging thing. I don't exactly know what she was asking about, but he basically like berated her and tell her how awful of a person she was and how terrible a reporter. It was just like just pretty like demeaning the talk, and like the optics of them coming within a few days of each other has just been like, wow, it's been pretty hard to see. Just like with already he's got a little bit of a chauvinistic sort of reputation, and those two like things, like the most powerful man in the world, talking down to like women reporters, it was just a little hard to watch, and I think a lot of people are not pleased with it and are a little perturbed by it.
So, what are your thoughts then on what happens next? It's kind of impossible to really hold Trump accountable for anything he says or does. Nothing that
Yeah,
you've just described. I also heard about this. Seems anything that I would not expect from Donald Trump. And as you've pointed out, he has kind of a history of doing this. He also mocked many years ago a reporter who had like a very obvious physical disability. I'm not sure what the correct term is. I'm doing my best, everybody. I know it's 2025. I'm not sure how to describe that in a woke way. So then, I mean, my guess is this goes away after a while. This doesn't really stick.
no, it's not going to stick, but it's I don't know. It's interesting. I heard some, as we plot in the Northwest, it's like that from now on we should be chanting "Quiet Piggy" at like Trump rallies moving forward. So that's our. If nothing else, it's given us a new slogan to chant at Donald Trump.
And no shortage of slogans to chant to Donald Trump, but add a new one to the list. Yeah, let me pull up. Let me pull up the most recent article I can find. This one's from The Guardian. And it involves Jimmy Kimmel. He's not, I guess, avoiding uh, avoiding the spotlight, despite somewhat recently being put on hiatus for I think it was several weeks. All right. Because of his comments after Charlie Kirk's assassination, which I agree. I think his comments were not tasteful, and I was fine with the hiatus because I think if a Republican person had somehow gotten the talk show on ABC and made similar comments about a liberal person who had just been assassinated, something just as bad, if not even worse, would have happened to them regarding a suspension. So I really have no problem with how that played out. Okay, so early on Thursday morning, Donald Trump made another plea for ABC to fire the late night comedian Jimmy Kimmel, writing on his Truth Social platform that he has no talent and very poor television ratings. Yeah, very Trump esque. On his show later that night, Kimmel was defiant, poking at the president for his previous attempt this fall to get him fired and suggesting that Trump had clearly been watching his show. Mr. President, I admire your tenacity. However, the reason I bring this up is because here we go. Referencing Trump's sexist slam of a Bloomberg News reporter recently, Kimmel told the president, "Quiet, piggy."
So
Here's
Kimmel's
from the New York. I'm
breaking
sorry,
it out. He's
continue,
testing it
Bjorn.
out. Oh, I was just saying, Kimmel's testing it out, breaking it out first. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen this a few different places, but I had not yet seen it attributed to Jimmy Kimmel. That's why I wanted to bring that up. And then this one from the New York Times. I'll share this also on my Twitch and Rumble stream. No, New York Times, I do not want to pay you money. Last week, President Trump snapped at a journalist when she asked him about Jeffrey Epstein. Quiet, the president told Catherine Lucio, a reporter for Bloomberg News. Quiet, piggy. Mr. Trump's use of a schoolyard epithet raised eyebrows. Disgusting and completely unacceptable, scolded CNN's Jake Tapper. A press watchdog group said that the targeting women reporters with humiliating insults should not be tolerated. But here on Thursday, Mr. Trump's press secretary put a different spin on the remark. Quote, I think everyone in this room should appreciate the frankness and openness that you get from President Trump on a near daily basis. Uh, this woman, Catherine Levitt, was asked by a journalist to explain what Mr. Trump had meant when he used the term piggy and presented the following logic. The president is very frank and honest with everyone in this room. You've seen it yourself. You've all experienced it yourselves. And I think it's one of the many reasons that the American people reelected this president because of his frankness. And he calls out fake news when he sees it. He gets frustrated with reporters when you lie about him, when you spread fake news about him and his administration. The president being frank and open and honest to your faces rather than hiding behind your back is frankly a lot more respectful than what you saw in the last administration. Well, hey, look at that. Calling a woman fat is respectful and frank. That's a good spin.
It's respectable.
I'm sorry, Ron, say that again.
You said it's respectable in somewhere else to say that?
So maybe I didn't explain it very well. So his press secretary is not addressing the comment quiet piggy like super directly, but is saying that generally those types of comments are more respectful than the previous administrations, so the Biden administration. And America reelected Donald Trump because he is full of frankness. And it's actually respectful to be that upfront than to do otherwise.
Okay.
I assume you do not buy that explanation, Ron.
I suppose not.
I give the Trump White House kudos just for. I mean, how many times has this happened when clearly Trump is, a loose cannon, and then they explain it in a rational way, like at least the explanation seems somewhat rational, but it doesn't
Right.
quite address what the problem is that they're trying to wipe away.
Right. Plus, it's, maybe okay to address that the woman is overweight, but not called a piggy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, you can tell someone they're overweight, and in fact, in some cultures, you are more or less likely to hear about your personal defects in this way. But to then call her piggy is more than just pointing out that someone may or may not be overweight. So, Ron, do you agree though that this is gonna go away? This really does feel like flavor of the week type territory. This is what they're talking about now. Kimmel's talking about it. I assume the other late night hosts. And then next week, Trump will like kick a dog or something, and then that'll be the new thing. I think we're still good over on Twitter. So, Ron, if you want to throw in, no worries if you cannot. All right, so let's. Oh, there you go, Ron. I just saw you unmuted.
Nothing to add really, but it's interesting and follow this particular story.
Before we move on to another big story, let's go back. You mentioned this is like your first day with a rescue, or did you say a stray cat? Do you want to jump into your decision why you decided for the first time, at least recently, or maybe as an adult, whatever it turns out to be, to have a cat in your house, and how did that happen?
How did it happen? This is a stray that just started meowing outside my door.
Now, once again, I think Ron is in the running for like best human in America. But to jump from there's a stray cat meowing outside your door to it's now inside your house and it's like the new pet. Why did you decide to go that way?
Because I wanted to. I don't have a pet. I miss having pets. Even though I'm not a cat person, I'm more of a dog person. But it's really sweet and it's nice to feed it. And it might be someone else's. I just let it back outside. If it meows again, he might just want might he. It might be one of those cats. It's like it'll come over to a neighbor's house to scavenge and chill out for a while, and then they'll go back home. My grandparents had a cat like that. Never went inside their home, but it would lay on their car on the trunk of their car. His name was Sylvester, and so he was kind of like their pet, but not really. So there's always those kinds of cats that just they'll um, either inside and outside. But she's really sweet, and I fed her a half can of tuna, and she's off now because I don't have a kitty litter box. So that was I was hoping to get it back outside. I mean, I can. She lets me pick her up, so I can just pick her up and put her outside. But I hate to if she's completely without a home. I hate to ignore her, but the problem is that I'm quasi allergic to them. If I touch my hands after touching her, my eyes will just well up, and I'm starting to get like this kind of scratchy feeling like on the side of my neck. So I think I might just leave off, not litter. It's just weird to be allergic to an animal. That's the only allergy I have. That and one medication I've taken in the past. It's the only allergies I have.
Yeah, no more cat hair probiotics for Ron. Okay, so this is multiple levels. So this cat, yeah, cats more than dogs. They ramble, so they move around the
Right.
neighborhood. the fact that you were able to pick the cat up means that it's not feral, because feral cats are afraid of
Exactly.
humans. So yeah, it's definitely grown up and lived around people. Or like you said, it could be someone else's cat and it's just been doing some rambling. Um, but yeah, no, it's interesting. You brought the cat into your house and were feeding it, despite the fact that you like have a clear allergy to cats. So this is a real difficult situation. So then, if the cat is still around your house the next several days, are you just going to do this kind of halvesies thing where the cat comes in, goes out, and you just got to make sure you're not touching your face after you touch the cat? Or might this become
Exactly.
a permanent, you know, member of the Ron household?
It depends on my heart is in it, but at the same time, I'm worried about how much because I will forget to wash my hands because I don't ever wash my hands anyway. I'm very dirty that way. Nasty, just nasty. Call me Ron Nasty. That's what I am. But the fact
Nasty,
that
nasty Ron with a heart of gold, everybody. Yeah, no, I wash my hands a lot.
the
You and I are two different people, and
fact
I
that
don't
I
even have a
haven't,
cat allergy.
yeah, the fact that I haven't been sick in 10 years tells me that it's okay that I don't wash my hands and I'm nasty like that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, but no, it's I see a
Yeah,
future
and
of
there's a little something really quick. There's a little something to that. What was in wasn't it? God, what was that terrible childhood illness that affected American children much more than kids in developing countries? Because in developing countries, you're around unsanitary conditions more. And they had to put the kids like in iron lungs. I'm gonna have to put this into ChatGPT. I can't remember what it was, but they came up with a vaccine for it, and it's no longer really an issue in the United States. But it was something that showed that while okay, in theory, if things are cleaner, maybe kids
Polio.
in some ways are going to. I'm sorry. Say that again, Bjorn.
I'm sorry, you're thinking of polio. Polio.
Polio. Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bjorn, as someone who works in the medical field, polio is something that affected children more in the developed world than the developing world, right?
Well, the one of the ways that people were protected against it was from cowpox. So people who like were milkmaids and like milked cows by hands got cowpox, and then that protected them from smallpox. So if you didn't work on cows, then you weren't as protected.
Okay, so whatever it was, we had less cow physical touching with my hands manual labor in the United States, and for whatever reasons, it was something here, and it was not as much of an issue other places. But the reason I bring all this up is because, yeah, there are, if you will, undesirable effects to development, to, washing your hands constantly. We saw this in COVID. So everybody was home. And when kids went back to school, they were less likely, for many different reasons we don't have to go into, to contract COVID versus adults. And we found that having them not go to school was not great. So we sent them back to school. But then you had this like couple of years or longer where kids, because they'd been shut up for so long, were getting a bunch of other illnesses that they were kind of protected from. So in theory, hey, the kids were not getting sick when they were home. But then when they went back to school and they were around a bunch of other kids, we had a bunch of kids in the hospital, not necessarily because of COVID, but because of all these other things. So it just goes to show that while you want to be protective of your children or protective of yourself, yeah, there might be a little bit of, what might be a little nugget of knowledge in Ron's don't need to wash my hands too often lifestyle.
definitely.
So I want to know what happens to this cat then, Ron. So you'll have to keep us updated. It's Cat Watch 2025.
There you go. Real good.
Whether or not it becomes a permanent member of the Ron household, whether or not it's kind of 1 foot in, 2 feet in, 4 feet, 2 feet in, 2 feet out of the house, and whatever situation it turns out to be, how you deal with the fact that you seem to have a pretty strong allergic reaction to cats. if you touch them, and then that gets on your face or somewhere else. So this is a fascinating, not super importance when we're talking about the White House and the military and all these different things, but fascinating nonetheless. So please keep us up to date on that, Ron. Okay, let's really quickly then get to the elephant in the room. I was promoting this with the show in general. I'm going to bring some stuff up on these unlawful orders for the military and whether or not they should obey them, and Trump threatening Democrats with pretty strong words, even for Trump, when they say that the military should not have to follow unlawful orders. Let me get the most updated article on this that I can find. From the Washington Post. Let's see if I can read this without having to pay for it, which is always my goal here on the show. Okay, here we are. Oh no. I do not want to enter my email address. I think. Oh, no, I did not beat their system. It used to be several years ago, you could just hit refresh on your browser and then hit stop, and you would get past most paywalls. I know it sounds very elementary, but it actually worked quite a lot. It works less now. All right, we'll take something from Reuters from yesterday. Here we are. Oh no. It's asking me to allow ads. I'm really striking out on today's show. Okay, but my refresh and then hitting stop before the page was fully refreshed does work on Reuters.com. Okay, here we are. President Donald Trump on Thursday assailed Democratic lawmakers who told members of the U.S. military they must refuse any illegal orders, calling the Democrats traitors who could face execution. Once again, even for Donald Trump, this is quite an escalation. Trump reposted an article about a video released on Tuesday by 6 Democratic lawmakers who served in the military or in the intelligence community. Seditious behavior punishable by death, Trump wrote in a Truth Social post. This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors, lock them up. Trump's post on Thursday are the latest example of him calling for punishment of those he sees as political enemies. Since returning to the presidency in January, Trump has targeted critics such as former federal officials John Bolton and James Comey. In November 2021, Trump defended the chants of his supporters who called for hanging Vice President Mike Pence. I don't remember that. That's interesting. As they stormed the U.S. Capitol in a deadly riot on January 6th of that year. Now, I will point out, Trump just got an apology from the BBC and may get even more because they purposely edited a video making it look like he said things in a way that he did not. They edited out the part where he was like, hey, peaceful protests, everybody. But it is true that he has defended those involved in the January 6th attack on Congress. Specifically here says he defended the chants of his supporters who called for hanging Vice President Mike Pence. Top Democrats in Congress say Trump's words could incite violence and that they had contacted U.S. Capitol Police to ensure Democratic lawmakers' safety. So this is going back to him saying they're traitors and that can be punished by execution. Many Republicans have been silent on the matter. At a news briefing later, White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said no. When asked whether the president wanted to execute members of Congress, Ms. Levitt, could we get you on record? Does the president want to execute Congress? But she castigated the Democrats for encouraging members of the military to defy the chain of command. In the video, the Democratic lawmakers directly address members of the U.S. military and intelligence community, saying the Trump administration was pitting those institutions against the American people and threatening tenets of the U.S. Constitution. We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders. That was Mark Kelly of Arizona who said that part. The other lawmakers offered a similar refrain. We need you to stand up for our laws, our Constitution. Don't give up the ship. The lawmakers did not refer to any particular incident or scenario and did not provide any examples of orders that they might consider illegal. After Trump's Truth Social post, one of the lawmakers wrote on Twitter that she and her colleagues would continue to defend the Constitution. For civilians, U.S. law has no provision for a charge of sedition, although seditious conspiracy carries a maximum penalty of 20 years. For troops, the Uniform Code of Military Justice includes a section on sedition with possible penalties, including death. Some Democrats in Congress have been sharply critical of Trump's military strikes on suspected drug traffickers in the Southern Caribbean and the Pacific, focusing on the legality of those decisions and lack of transparency. There have also been concerns that Trump will launch an attack on Venezuela itself. Democrats have also challenged Trump's attempts to deploy National Guard personnel to support immigration crackdowns in U.S. cities. Numerous Republican senators yesterday declined to comment on Trump's remarks. Although some that did. Senator Tim Sheehy? Senator Tim, a Montana Republican and former U.S. Navy SEAL, said, well, that's his opinion. Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican from South Carolina, told reporters that he hated the Democrats' video, but called Trump's reaction to their message over the top. Senator Chuck Schumer, resident old man in Congress, called Trump's posts an outright threat. When Donald Trump uses the language of execution and treason, some of his supporters may very well listen. He is lighting a match soaked with gasoline. All right, so what does everybody think about this? I think this is quite an escalation for Donald Trump. He says a lot of things, but I would not have predicted this would have happened this week. I think it makes sense that it did. I'm not blaming the Democrats for releasing that video, but given, it's like AI. If you give it certain inputs, it's going to give you certain outputs. And I think that the president, being who he is, it's not out of the realm of possibility that this would happen when he sees a video with Democratic lawmakers telling members of the military they don't have to follow legal orders. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, logically, it holds up. I mean, this is why we have war crimes. You cannot just do whatever you want. So just troops doing terrible things. And when your superior officer tells you to do terrible things that are clearly not legal, I believe it's your duty, described in, how we describe the duty of different members of the military here in the United States, to not follow those orders. And unfortunately, we've learned in the last 70, 80, 90 years why that's really important, to have that independent ability even when you are given direct orders. However, I would not say that Trump is giving the military clearly illegal orders now, nor has he during this term, nor would I say in his previous term. In fact, most of the things he's asked the military to do eventually, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, have actually been decided to be legal by the courts. He's not batting 1,000%, but his winning streak's pretty good. Um, so I guess the only thing I would question on the side of the Democratic lawmakers is if you're going to tell members of the military they don't have to follow legal orders and you're going to release a video so you're promoting this fact, it's one thing to do it, but then to promote it, okay, that's another thing on top of that. Give me a specific reason why that's needed. I don't know that that exists. I'm a Democrat. I don't know that that exists. It doesn't mean you can't do both of those things. Tell members of the military they don't have to follow legal orders and promote it. Those are perfectly fine things to do in theory, but I'm just wondering what was the impetus for that. I know we have the targeted attacks on these quote unquote drug boats and this buildup against Venezuela. Um, Neither of those stick out to me as a specific reason to go on the hey military, you don't have to follow legal orders bandwagon. It makes sense, kind of. It's in the ballpark, but I'm not seeing the smoking gun, if you will. So Bjorn or Ron, can anybody tell me what I'm missing here?
I mean, my guess, and I just have a guess, is that it's related to the Venezuela buildup, and um, clearly we've been like bombing these random boats that we can't really identify the people, and a lot of folks feel that those things are illegal. So it could be in reference to that. We're also parking um, our aircraft carrier, biggest aircraft carrier that we have, just off the port of Venezuela, in a nice place where we could start bombing them if we wanted to. And they asked Trump if he would want to even use ground troops in Venezuela, and he said he wouldn't rule it out. And so, like, if we're going to invade Venezuela, and from what I understand is like what he's asking is that their president, I think Maduro, to like step down. That's what he wants. So he says, step down, or like bad things are going to happen. So he's basically like threatening to like invade the country unless their president steps down. So like it's kind of a wild reason to start a war. I mean, I'm sure he has other reasons like, drugs or something, but it seems very bizarre and almost a little wag the doggy with Epstein coming out. So I don't know. So I don't know if it's related to that, but that's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, those dots that you just connected are real. So I don't take anything away from what you just said. I guess I didn't fully explain my position, and now I want to read from ChatGPT, the official source on everything, ChatGPT. So I ask, can't the president invade a country, attack a specific target, etc., without congressional approval? Can't the president act in these ways for a certain amount of time without an official declaration of war from Congress? The president can start using military force, but can't lawfully wage a sustained war without Congress. The U.S. system is built on a kind of awkward duet where the Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war, but gives the president control of the military. The result is perpetual tension. Across history, presidents have leaned heavily into that ambiguity. So here's what's actually true. A president can order military strikes, invasions, or targeted attacks without prior congressional authorization. Every modern president has done this. Think of it as the commander in chief's opening move. The logic is that the military must be usable on short notice, especially in emergencies, but that power is not unlimited. Congress passed the War Powers Resolution Act of 1973, which basically says you can send troops into hostile areas, but you have 48 hours to notify Congress. And unless Congress approves or extends the mission, you have to withdraw the forces within 60 days, plus 30 more days for logistics. In practice, the law is more like a strongly worded suggestion. Presidents routinely argue it doesn't apply to what they're doing by claiming the action isn't about hostilities or that a narrow authorization from years ago still counts. If you look at the historical pattern, Reagan invaded Grenada without approval. Clinton bombed Kosovo for months without approval. Obama hit Libya without approval. Trump killed Soleimani without approval. Biden launched strikes in the Middle East without approval. Congress often complains, but rarely punches back hard enough to stop this. The constitutional theory behind all this is that Congress controls the purse and can cut off funding. In reality, Congress usually avoids pulling that trigger because no politician wants to be accused of abandoning troops mid operation. So the real world answer is thus: a president can launch short term or limited military actions without Congress, but cannot legally carry on a full scale war indefinitely without Congress signing off. The system leaves a lot of gray, and presidents have learned to sprint through that gray zone whenever they want. So, this is a very long explanation of what I thought was the case, that basically the president can do whatever they want for a short term amount of time, and even then can do even more because they call Congress out to stop them. They say a previous authorization allows it. They try to say hostilities is a definition that does not fit what they're trying to do. So unless anybody has any information to the contrary, and please offer that if you do, I think everything Trump has done in this most recent term falls under this, and I believe legally. I am not a lawyer, but I play one on social audio. Trump could invade Venezuela with just the authorization of his signature. So again, I'm wondering, what is the emphasis on illegal orders pointing to exactly? Again, I don't fault it because it's true and it's a good lesson to, beat into troops' minds. Hey, if it's illegal, you don't have to follow the order. I don't see that possibility anytime soon, right?
Yeah, but I think that what you're saying is true. That a president can do and order these things, just like a general can order you to go do a thing, like, and they have that authority. But I think whenever we're talking about, like, whether it be a conscientious objector or someone like defying their direct supervisor, then the spirit of, like, the Nuremberg trials is when they kind of really started, like, saying this is like something that you should have inherently known. Random Nazi, you should know not to have done this terrible thing to this human, because everybody should know that. Who cares if you're superior or did you do that terrible thing? Then the spirit of what they're saying is like, hey, if what they are ordering is a crime against against humanity or something that is terrible, then you as a human do not have to do that. And so, yes, what you're talking about is like the technical, authority that he can do, and yes, he can do all those sort of things. But the question is like, you as a human could decide, I'm going to not do that. That being said, the military can then decide, you have made the wrong choice, sir, and you're going to go to prison. And they do that all the time. There was a case in Kansas where this happened with a doctor. I don't know if I've talked about it on the show or not, but she thought that going to Iraq was illegal because, that was just her position. She felt that like this was not a good war to go on, and it was not for good reasons. And she, quoted the Nuremberg trials and said, "Hey, I don't think this is good." And so the military said, "Oh, great, thanks for that. We're going to put you in uh, prison." And they put her in like Leavenworth prison with like all the other criminals who, like did really bad stuff. But he was just basically a conscientious objector against the Desert Shield War in 1990. So you can still do that, but if the government decides that your assessment of what is illegal or not is incorrect, then you will go to jail.
So yeah, I get all that. And this response from ChatGPT mentioned gray area, and certainly you've identified a gray area. But if it was, specific things that everybody would agree, are terrible, like things the Nazis did, we'll just leave it at that. Or like, accounts of forces in Vietnam, not only from the US, but our allied nations, just killing civilians, running into a village and just shooting everybody. Why don't they say in that video, why don't they say if Trump tells you to kill civilians, that's an illegal order and you don't have to follow it? Or if Trump says round people up and make them disappear, insert whatever description you want of a clearly not legal act by hypothetically by US military. Why don't they give those specifics and then make the claim, have you heard Donald Trump the last 10 years? You think that this is out of the realm of something he would say? And then have that be the video, rather than, hey, members of the military, you don't have to follow legal orders, when the president has so much leeway of things that not only right now they they could do, and at the most would just be held up afterwards and decided whether it was right. But when you look at all of the presidents in our lifetimes and even before, they've all done something similar, to where they've basically waged some kind of war and been able to do that. Once again, I'm still missing the smoking gun here. I understand, given that it's Trump, the fear is there. The fear is there about everything with Trump, because everything is possible under Trump. But I got to say, I don't defend Trump saying that this is seditious and these people could face death. That's an escalation that surprises me even for Donald Trump. But if we just say that he's upset with this and is calling them out on this, I kind of understand why and feel like it's somewhat, not the way he did it, somewhat justified. I don't see the data here that necessitates this conversation right now.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he thinks it's justified. I mean, everything he thinks he does is justified. But I mean, the question is it a lawful or legal war to invade another country who is sovereign because their president doesn't refuse to step down? That seems like a crazy reason to start a war
But
to
wouldn't
me.
wouldn't
And it seems like an illegal reason.
wouldn't you say though that according to American law and precedent, it is legal? Just that
Yeah,
act
I mean,
itself seems pretty legal.
yeah, but like, what if he decided to do this to like Britain? He decided, hey, Britain, we're going to start bombing you because I don't like your prime minister. He has that authority to do that. But like, I hope that America would say, hey, that's really crazy. Like, let's maybe not do that. And that's what they're saying is, even though it's just Venezuela, who, we're characterizing as like, I don't know, communists or our enemies or drug dens or whatever you want to say, it sounds less crazy than if we said like England. Because what if England? What if it was England? Like, does that sound like less? Does that sound like more plausible to say? Well, I don't think I want to invade England for not doing, just not like giving up their prime minister because you said to do it, Donald Trump.
I know it happened a long time ago, but did you know that they burned the White House in the War of 1812? I feel like there's a little bit
Yeah.
of redemption that we gotta go for. I was reminded of that recently when we talked about the construction at the White House, which Trump handled so poorly, but also so Trumpian. The way they did it. And I look forward to this new giant ballroom that fits 999 people. I wish we could get another chair in there just to make it easier at 1,000. But hey, it's 999. And so I think that people calling out Trump for doing all that stuff was just a waste of time because clearly he had the authority to do that. He just did it in a way that makes everybody pissed off because he's Trump. I look at this, even though the stakes here are much higher, the same way. When the Democrats just lost the battle of the shutdown and looked like idiots the way that it ended, I worry continually that what little effort they have on their side, what little momentum they have on their side to invest in different anti-Trump products, anti-Trump projects, I should say. When they say, "Hey, you don't have to follow legal orders," but I Trump can do so much legally. I don't think we're going to have an illegal order that the troops are actually going to have to contemplate not obeying, even if it does mean avenging the burned White House of the War of 1812 and invading the UK across the pond. So it just seems like what's the point of this, right? I know I'm really splitting hairs on this, but when the
Yeah.
Democrats, even though they've had some victories lately in elections, are just such a hot mess, is this the best use of their time? It does show that Republicans have limits, even with Trump, because most Republicans wouldn't talk about this, and the few that did were basically summed up by, well, that's his opinion. And I think he went a little overboard in his attack on Democrats. But just what's the point of all this? What are the Democrats going to accomplish, even in the best case scenario? That like troops didn't already know this. This is new information to them, and if they get called on to invade Venezuela, they're going to throw down their arms and say, "Put me in jail."
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a couple things. I think, first I'll preface by saying I'm not an international lawyer, don't understand the international law, but the premise for going to war can be illegal. Looking at like in that from the international community, and this is why we say like from Russia's standpoint, they invaded Ukraine because the people there who were Russian wanted to be free from Ukraine's Nazis or whatever it is that they said, and so they've said this is why we went to war. It's very very justified. But the international community says no, this is an illegal reason to go to war. So we're going to you know, uh, do the things that we're doing against Russia, all the things. And so, like, while yes, it may be legal under American law to do these things that he's doing, the whole premise from a larger context could still be considered illegal under international law. And that's what they're saying about the the strikes against the boats too. Is like, yes, Trump has the authority to do that and isn't necessarily technically illegal under American law, but like is the premise of like blowing up random boats without really knowing who's on them, killing random people, is that a legal thing that we should be engaging in? I think most people would say no. Some people would say yes, I guess. But the same with the Venezuela thing. Should we be invading this country? And from like the veteran standpoint, like I think like when you're a young buck and you haven't been in the war before, you kind of just want to go blow stuff up. But I think also if you're a little bit longer in the tooth and the veterans who've seen war and have gone to some of those places there, I think, understand the true cost of war, and that like when Donald Trump decides if we're actually going to go to war with Venezuela, that means that probably some of our folks are going to die, as well as clearly like Venezuelans who you know have are just trying to live their life, but also American citizens and soldiers and other people are going to do this. And it has not worked out for us well in the past when we've tried to do regime change in Latin America. We have a sordid past, causing lots of strife and terrible things. And just regime change in general, I don't think have a very good history. And so I think they are like flexing on this because they, as like military veterans and other intelligence people, are thinking, hey, this is a really bad idea. Just to let you know, you have this thing. Is that a good tactic or not? I don't know. But I mean, I understand, I think, where they're coming from. I agree that I'm not sure if it's like the best tactic. I think that maybe like, Congress needs to like talk more about this, and we need to be like, the peaceniks need to be out and about on like, we shouldn't go to a random war, because I mean, at the drop of a hat, he could start bombing Venezuela, and there's nothing anybody could really do about it. But it's kind of a really terrible idea, in my opinion.
So yeah, I guess if you expand and you say, well, by telling troops they don't have to follow legal orders, they're just giving them yet another reminder of what they already know. And there are members of the U.S. military who have been in some of our recent wars and know the cost of that. And it's a signal to the international community to try to hold us accountable if we do start a war with Venezuela or whatever else they're afraid of. And let's keep with our norms because we've lost so many norms with Donald Trump. Okay, yeah, it's making more sense. I know we're just kind of going back and forth on this, but I would say like, okay, maybe there are better ways, and you and I seem to agree on this, or at least there are more direct ways that you can accomplish all of these things rather than the way they did it. So I guess again, I just focus back on, you know, I don't see a direct benefit of the way they went about it. And I guess more than worrying about what happens now, because maybe this turns into something. I mean, President Trump really escalated with his counter move to the video released by Democrats, where they just told members of the military you don't have to follow illegal orders, which is true and is valuable. With his escalation, maybe this doesn't go away after a week, but at the same time, boy, what what might have Democrats done this week to draw attention to something that would hurt Trump, um, rather than this? I don't have a clear answer right now, but I feel like given a few minutes, I could come up with a few ideas. Over on Twitter Spaces, I reset Twitter Spaces, so you may have lost audio for a few seconds because I saw so many people in the room and they weren't speakers, and I was like, I feel like these people would jump in as speakers. So I was worried that Elon Musk was kicking us in the cojones, and I may have gotten that right because now Shannon is a speaker. Patreon.com/NEWZ debate supporter Shannon. We also have MC Funk, another dear friend of the show like Shannon and Patreon supporter who is a listener. We would love to hear from you, MC Funk. It has been some time since you've been live on the show. Also, a friend of the show, Reggie, is with us, but Reggie often listens while he's working. So I'm not sure if Reggie can throw in. You can tweet me and I can read some things. But for right now, Ron is still joining us. Ron, raise your hand if you'd like to jump in as always. Shannon, you are a speaker. Say hello, give us an update, and if you have something to add, please do.
Hi Lee. No, Ron, Sal, Reggie, MC. I don't know who you were talking to, but whoever that is on Twitch.
Oh, that's Bjorn's over on stereo. And then
Bjorn's
I
over there.
apologize.
Okay.
Yes, Sal is here right now as well. How you doing, Sal?
I put mine down below. MTG just announced she's resigning as of January.
No.
Yep.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yep. She just announced
She was
on
on
X
Bill
that
Maher
she was.
recently.
What was that, Liam? Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm gonna read this. I wonder if there's some delay over on Twitter now. But yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she has announced she will resign. So I'm going to read that. That's new to me. Thank you so much for that, Shannon. But she was on Bill Maher recently, and I got to say, she seemed a lot more sane than I expected, and perhaps that was me unfairly judging her. And she talked about the fact that she still supported the president, and she has been a big fan of Trump in the past, so that has remained constant. But she disagreed with him on some things, including Epstein and the release of those files. And she talked about how the women deserved to have that transparency and those files be released. Now, I believe Congress, Trump may have signed it. I believe Congress has passed this Epstein bill that is going to release, in theory, the remainder or most of, I'm not sure of the details of this information. And while that was happening, Trump started attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I remember she replied that she hopes they can salvage their relationship. So she was the adult in that back and forth conversation between her and Trump. But gosh dang, I got to say, I'm disappointed here. I would have loved to have her stick around. I feel like she's proven to be feisty. And once again, for Republicans, you can kind of take what you get, because I know it could be worse even than Marjorie Taylor Greene. Because on the same episode of Bill Maher, they were talking about aliens, and she said, those aliens, they could be fallen angels. And she seemed pretty truthful about that. So this is from CNBC. Sad to
Yeah, she
say,
just announced.
Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, sorry, Shannon, go on.
Yeah, she put out her resignation letter on Twitter. I had to find an actual news story on it, but she put her 4-page resignation letter on Twitter. Like 15
Yet
minutes
again,
ago. 20
Twitter,
minutes ago.
X, they
Yeah.
remain useful and important today, despite the fact that a lot of people don't like them anymore. Most people have stayed on Twitter. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia announced today, this evening, that she will, I'm actually sad about this. I'm sorry it came to this. Resign her seat in the House of Representatives, with her last day in office being January 5th. At least she makes it to 2026, right? Her announcement in a video and statement posted on X came after a dramatic break with President Donald Trump. I hope she doesn't go away. I hope she gets a job somewhere and offers commentary and continues to be in the public eye. Maybe I am going too far with this, but I really had an improved opinion of her after she appeared on Bill Maher, and I applaud Bill Maher just in general. But because the fact that he consistently offers the interview after the comedy, when he comes out like a late night talk show host, there's always an interview, and then it goes to a panel discussion, and it wraps up with some sort of comedy bit he does. He continually reaches out to people that a lot of Democrats think you shouldn't give them a platform. And then what happens? You hear from Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she seems a lot more reasonable than you thought she would. And now I'm sad. Greene faced criticism from Trump for supporting a bill to compel the Department of Justice to release investigative files about Jeffrey Epstein, the notorious sex offender. It has her video, it has her official statement. Greene has also criticized the Republican president for what she suggested is prioritizing meeting foreign leaders at the expense of paying attention to the needs of Americans. Quote, I have too much self respect and dignity, love my family too much, and do not want my sweet district, all right, to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans will likely lose the midterms. And in turn, be expected to defend the president against impeachment after he hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me. It's also absurd and completely unserious. I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. Wow. Feisty, feisty, feisty. Let me see if I can play this video. I'm going to unshare my screen because I think when I shared it, I selected do not share audio. And let me see if I can play this and let me see if this works. This is from X.
Hi, everyone. I've always represented the common American man and woman as a member of the House of Representatives, which is why I've always been despised in Washington, D.C., and just never fit in. Americans are used by the political industrial complex of both political parties, election cycle after election cycle, in order to elect whichever side can convince Americans to hate the other side more. And the results are always the same. No matter which way the political pendulum swings, Republican or Democrat, nothing ever gets better for the common American man or woman. The debt goes higher, corporate and global interests remain Washington's sweethearts, American jobs continue to be replaced, whether it's by illegal labor or legal labor by visas or just shipped overseas. Small businesses continue to be swallowed by big corporations. Americans' hard-earned tax dollars always fund foreign wars, foreign aid, and foreign interest. And the spending power of the dollar continues to decline. The average American family can no longer survive on a single breadwinner's income, as both parents have to work in order to simply survive. And today, many in my children's generation feel hopeless for their future and don't think they will ever realize the American dream. And that breaks my heart. I ran for Congress in 2020 and have fought every single day believing that Make America Great Again meant America first. I have one of the most conservative voting records in Congress, defending the First Amendment, Second Amendment, unborn babies, because I believe God creates life at conception, and I love to fight for the little guy. Strong, safe borders, I have fought hard for that. I've fought against COVID tyrannical insanity and mandated mass vaccinations, and I've never voted to fund foreign wars with your hard-earned tax dollars. However, with almost 1 year into our majority, the legislature has been mostly sidelined. We endured an 8-week shutdown, wrongly, resulting in the House not working for the entire time, and we are entering
So I'm going to jump in here. I didn't realize this is nearly 11 minutes and we've only gone in 2 minutes. So maybe throughout the rest of the show, we'll check back in with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I want to make a few comments here. Number one, there is a large decorated lit up Christmas tree. It's clearly not aware of the line that exists between Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. So that's interesting. Number two, I got to say, that was a clever line. She likes to fight for the little guy. Can you imagine someone who's smaller than an embryo, than is it called a zygote, than the fertilized egg? Interesting. Shannon, let's go back to you. This is in all sincerity. If we have to have a Republican from that district, I'm okay with Marjorie Taylor Greene, at least currently. She was a bit cray-cray in the past. She seems to have mellowed a bit as Trump has begun to like her less. And she has stood up for the things that she has consistently disagreed with him on, basically Epstein and a few small other things. So, all things being equal, I would have been happy to not have this happen, but she has announced her resignation, which will take place in just the first few days of January 2026. So she'll make it into the new year. And this is quite the development. So, Shannon, your thoughts? Give me more.
Good. Happy to see her go. Bye. Have a nice day. I don't handle anyone well that says, Sandy Hook was a false flag. She can go. Or the Jewish space laser, or the,
She
hurricane being
never she
directed at
never actually
Republican state
said
voters.
Jewish space laser. That was talked
No,
about on
she
Bill
said a
Maher.
space laser by
There,
Jewish elites.
Shannon, you're very good at this. So you find me an article that tells me exactly
Sure.
what she said. From what I remember, it was a little more nuanced than that, but I could be wrong. Would you agree that if we have to have a Republican from her district, given that Trump is attacking her and she is not relenting on Epstein files release, and okay, she has certainly done some crazy things in the past, but I think she's mellowed a bit, just like who's the super liberal AOC, who was really a liberal when she ran and was elected, but is less crazy liberal now. She's still very far to the left, but she has mellowed a bit herself. Did Marjorie Taylor Greene serve a purpose up until today? Or, like you said, happy travels?
To be Lauren Boebert's best friend? I don't know. I don't know what else it's done. Yelling at Biden? I don't know. From, when he was doing his speech, her and Boebert, State of the Union. I mean, I suppose we could get someone worse. I don't know how they could be worse, but, I suppose. But we might get a Democrat, too, because they still got to run an election.
Yeah,
I think.
it may depend state to state, because I remember Blagojevich or whatever in Illinois, unless I'm really drunk right now, was basically found trying to sell an open Congress seat. So I'll have to dig into that. You may be absolutely right that they'll just have another election. But my question is that, yeah, I mean, if we get a Republican who's just okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a bit nuts. If we get a Republican who's more like a Mike Pence, maybe the distraction is lower. The voting record probably is going to be about the same. And if you can flip it, if there is an election and have a Democrat, okay, yeah, I think that's a turn for the positive. But I don't know. I have this soft spot for Marjorie Taylor Greene, especially now. I mean, you can argue she's giving up, but at the same time, I feel like she's also throwing in the towel in a way that makes her look like a victor, and once again continues to throw shade onto the president in a somewhat indirect but also direct way. So let's ask ChatGPT here. Marjorie. Oh, now I can't remember how to spell her name. Marjorie. Yes. Taylor Greene has just announced her resignation. Will there be a special election to fill her seat?
Yeah, because they're not going to wait till November 2026 to fill her seat, right? They wouldn't wait a year or 11 months.
So, Greene has announced she will resign from the U.S. House of Representatives. Her last day, as of now, is slated to be January 5th, 2026. She represents Georgia's 14th congressional district. Yes, planning is already underway for an election. Because the seat will become vacant before the next regular election cycle, a special election is required to fill it for the remainder of the term.
She must be in a heavily gerrymandered district because she won 64% of the vote last time. The Democrat won 35. So it'll be another Republican.
Could be. Also, Georgia is not. It's not. It's not Washington State. It's not Oregon. So here, this is what I was asking about the process in Georgia specifically. When a U.S. House seat becomes vacant, the state's governor issues a writ of election to set the date for the special election. The scheduling, party primaries, if required, and other logistics depend on state law and timing. Given the vacancy begins early January 2026, the special election will happen sometime before the next full term kicks in, which is after the general 2026 election. Yeah, so it looks like there will be an election. My guess is a Republican wins it, just based on it's Georgia, and also you mentioned she got like higher than 60%. So that seems like a big swing to go to the Democrats.
Yes, that would be a massive swing. She got 64 and he got 35. Democrat that went against her last time.
Do we think anybody out there? Do we think that um, there's more to this than she and Trump are no longer best buds? Um, is there something else at play here that we don't know about? With her falling out with other Republicans, or is it that she timed it for early January 2026 because she knew it would be a special election that would likely be filled by a Republican, and so she just took that as a way out rather than sticking it through? Anything else here to read into that you might think exists, Shannon?
Um, I don't know. I mean, like last week, she was complaining because she had to hire her own private security. So maybe someone scared her enough. I mean, after, she went off on Trump there, she got a bunch of death threats and had to hire her own security. I know that was big in the news last week.
Yeah, so it's not just Democrats who are worried about security because of what Trump says. This week, it's Democrats who are being called seditious and basically being given death threats by the president after they started the conversation. They released that video telling members of the military that they don't have to follow legal orders. I question just the logic of that choice. And so now they're saying, oh, now the security of these people is in question. Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene looks at them and
she
says, hold
said,
my beer.
she said this on November 15th. A hotbed of threats against me are being fueled and egged on by the most powerful man in the world, without referring to Trump by name, adding it was the man I supported and helped get elected. Green said that aggressive rhetoric attacking me has historically led to death threats and multiple convictions of men who were radicalized by the same type of rhetoric being directed at me now, this time by the President of the United States. Green did not specify any threats against her that had been received by security firms, but said that as a woman, I take threats from men seriously. I now have a small understanding of the fear and pressure the women who are victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal must feel.
Cabal. Yeah, cabal.
She said,
Also added very quickly at the end of that statement, I fight for the little who could be smaller than an egg that has been fertilized by sperm in a woman's ovaries. Yeah. So, man, yeah, this is. I really thank you for bringing this up to me. I don't think I would have seen this until the next show had you not. But this is, yeah. I know you are happy to see her go, but I thought Marjorie. I still think Marjorie Taylor Greene now more than ever serves a purpose. If we have to have a Republican, which looks like we will, from that district in Congress, yeah, the next person certainly will not be as interesting, will probably have a very similar voting record, and will not stand up to Donald Trump. I think this is a loss for America.
Nah, I don't forgive that easy. She might have stood up for the Epstein victims, which I applaud her for, but no, all the other crazy shit she said does not. One good deed does not erase all the other shit. To me, anyways.
I'm going to jump over. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. And I don't disagree. This is a perspective thing. Did Marjorie Taylor Greene talk about Jews and space lasers?
Well, that's what I was doing. I got sidetracked with the what I was looking for.
See what I did there? Yeah, I asked you a question and then didn't follow up on it. I was like, yeah, I'll just forget about that. Yes. Long before she entered Congress, she posted a conspiracy theory on Facebook claiming that a California wildfire had been started by a space laser connected to the Rothschilds, a wealthy Jewish banking family often dragged into anti Semitic conspiracy lore. She did not literally use the phrase Jewish space laser, but the whole implication was exactly that, and the shorthand stuck because it captured the absurdity of the claim. She later said the post was, quote, dumb, though she framed it as careless conspiracy chatter rather than owning the anti Semitic roots of the idea. So, if I remember correctly on Bill Maher, she says, she never mentioned Jews and she connected it to the Rothschilds because of the power and influence. It's a wealthy banking family, also Jewish, that's often dragged into anti Semitic conspiracy lore. I claim victory on this. I think you can read between the lines, but if this was a test question, did Marjorie Taylor Greene specifically connect Jews, space lasers, and conspiracy theories about California wildfires or weather? The answer would be no. However, like many multiple choice or true false questions, it does leave out a lot of other information that is not necessarily invalid. Just absolutely, I would claim victory on this. But however, okay. There's some
I
meat
thought it
on the
was
bone
Hawaii
here.
that she did it too, but it could have been. It could have been California. I thought it was the Hawaii wildfire there, Maui. But you could be
Well,
right.
it says right here, Chat GPT can make mistakes. Check important info. So maybe it was another wildfire. Whatever the case, I am sad to see this woman go. No more will we have a blonde woman dressed in a Make America Great Again hat and a Make America Great Again t-shirt, shouting things while important people are speaking to Congress, you know.
She'll just go work for Fox News. Isn't that where all the blonde ones go?
Small tear rolling down my eye. Certainly, there are a few blonde women who work for Fox News. Yep, that would be a true on the true false question. There, that would be true. I would like to see her end up somewhere other than Fox News, but perhaps if she shows up on Fox News now as a regular contributor, I invite it. I hope she could maybe shootable than Fox News, but a little bit more. I could imagine someone like MSNBC, which I think is now, is it MS Now? They, they've rebranded and it's terrible. Um, show up on something like that, show up on CNN, show up on some other shows as a regular guest. They have the people that they keep bringing back, whether or not there's a contract, but it's just someone that they often will bring back for commentary. I'd love to see that happen. But you know what? I think it is fair to say that she has had some bad times recently. You could blame her, you could blame Trump, or you could blame both. And maybe she's looking for a little bit of reprieve. Um, but, you know, how long she needs, how long she thinks she needs, who knows? And what kind of opportunities will come her way. Even harder to guess, but I hope this is not the last we hear of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Maybe she's releasing a new book or something. Need something to talk about. Because her last one flopped, so maybe she needs new material.
That Oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene reads and writes books. I didn't know this. Okay, I didn't. I'll have to look up her previous book and or books. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
she
if she
has
wanted to take a
one and it
break
rates
and pay someone to
1.7
write a
out of
book and
5.
then say she wrote it, like most people do,
I'm thinking a
Amazon
ghostwriter might have
reviews
written
aren't
it.
everything. I mean, anytime a celebrity politician releases a book, that's my go-to move. I think that's pretty across the board. But yeah, I would love if she wrote a book about her fallout with Donald Trump and what it was to be even with the Republican Party. This is hard to do, but to be kind of a fringe Republican and to have it all kind of come collapsing down. Yeah, I invite that. I think that's an interesting story to once again pay someone to tell and then claim that you told it. But at least it would be about her. That would be established no matter who wrote it. Yeah. Okay. Well, Shannon, you just hit it out of the park. Bjorn is no longer with us over on stereo. Maybe he'll join us. Do you have anything else you want to go to? And also, MC Funk, you're with us over on Twitter. Not sure what your current situation is, but please request to speak if you can. We'd love to hear from you. Shannon, what else is on your mind?
Yeah. I just jumped in because I saw you. I just got the message that you were doing a show at 7. I was late. I didn't really have time to look up anything, but the first thing I looked up that
Well,
popped up
let's
on my
talk about
screen
that.
was like,
So, yeah, no, I mean this was a solid hit on your part. So, we heard from you recently, I believe on the last show I did, and you were giving us an update. You were kicked out of the Beverly Hills Rehab Clinic. You had a health scare and were in a rehab situation where you were at a facility. Definitely left some things to be desired, but your insurance had continually denied you staying there longer, and you had to keep filing appeals. And it just got to the point that you're like, I'm done following appeals. You went home. How are things doing now? I think you've been home at least a couple of weeks, if not longer.
almost a month now. I've been home. Almost. Next Monday, I think, is a month. But yeah, I'm doing all right, I guess. Getting stronger a little bit by little bit. So that's good. I'm off the crutches and back on the cane. So that's a bonus. But I have
It's
pretty
a lot
narrow
easier to
hallways,
hide
so
a
I use the
sword and
wall
a
and
cane than crutches. So that's probably a benefit. What are your thoughts on the last show? I think the last show we had live breaking news that the Democrats had caved, and that while it hadn't gone through yet, there would be an end to what had become the longest government shutdown in American history. And you were rather critical, as well as myself, of the Democrats for, I would say, causing a lot of pain and not getting anything out of it, which I could have told them from the very beginning. I think you phrased it more as they should have kept fighting, and you were disappointed in the Democrats. Where are you now?
they fucking suck. Suck. Didn't mean to swear there. Sorry, Lee. Those 8 just deserve to be primaried, the 8 that defected. Because, I don't know what I'm going to do in January. Because do I choose rent or do I choose health? That's what it comes down to.
So these are the subsidies that Republicans
Yeah.
said, I think in December there's going to be a vote on, but then you have no idea what that means. And of course, Republicans have a majority. So if there's a vote, the Democrats lose already. So now, coming up in the next couple of months or so, you're going to have higher insurance costs like millions of Americans, and you're getting your stamp, EBT, SNAP benefits. So you'll have food, but now you're going to have to choose between medical insurance or paying the bills, and you blame the Democrats.
I do. Well, I blame those 8 Democrats. The 8 that
So I
defected to the other
watched,
side there.
yeah, I watched Jon Stewart take down the Democrats and really enjoyed it. And he made the point that there's no way that it was just 8 Democrats, because I believe all 8 of them are not running for reelection. And it seems
Correct.
pretty good luck that it would turn out that way. And what Jon Stewart said is that, did that happen? Just, okay, hey. Or did Chuck Schumer and the Democrats say, we're going to end the longest ever government shutdown, and we're going to do this strategically so that people who are running for reelection can have plausible deniability. And the people who are going to go home here eventually, they're the ones who are going to change their votes. Or I think John Fetterman was always voting to not have the government be shut down because they don't have to get reelected.
That could be. Well, I mean, Fetterman, he was on their side originally, wasn't he?
Either from the very beginning or before the others switched their votes, he had been saying things like, the shutdown has run its course. We need to start the government again. So one or the other, either from the very beginning or sooner than the others, he was saying we need to end this. So I guess maybe he was locked in, but then the other 7, or however many it is, maybe there's another person who was a bit like Fetterman. It seems pretty, it's like getting struck by lightning twice, winning the lottery twice. Like, it seems pretty strange that it would just turn out to be people who are not running for reelection are the ones that allow the government to reopen.
I only see I only see one on the list that's not, but it could be more. Dick Durbin, he's retiring after 3 decades in office. Oh, Dick Cheney died. Woo.
Yeah, Dick Cheney died. You feel
That's
like
another
he
one.
made a pact with the devil to just live forever, but even Dick Cheney could not cling on to life.
And Trump and Vance were kicked out of that funeral too, weren't invited.
Oh, Trump and Vance were not invited.
Oh, yes. Well, probably because Liz Cheney's their daughter, and she probably made all the arrangements. And Trump went after Liz
Yeah,
Cheney.
and I
So
believe Liz Cheney, as well as her father, both advocated Republicans not vote for Trump in this recent election.
yes, yes, yeah, because that's why she's not in office anymore. And Pelosi's retiring. Finally.
Pelosi's retiring. Yeah, that's a good move. It might hurt the Democrats because of her power, but I think she's pretty healthy. But she's one of many people on both sides of the aisle who don't look great clinging to power. She's well accomplished.
Schumer's got
I
to
don't take
go.
that away from her. Yeah, Schumer's the
got to
next
go
one.
too.
Yeah, he's 5 years ago, he looks, just like so many things, if you become a little overweight, maybe it's not a big deal, but once you hit a certain point, when you start putting on more pounds, it looks much worse than it did previously. So if you put on 20 pounds at a certain weight, it doesn't look as bad as if you put on 20 pounds at a different weight. Chuck Schumer 5 years ago looked a lot better than he does now, and his aging is progressively making him look worse and worse. Where, 15 years ago, the difference between him and 20 years ago, maybe not a big difference. Last 5 years, he's looked a lot older. Really quickly, just so I don't forget this, the Democrats who voted to reopen the government: Dick Durbin, Jeanne Shaheen, Maggie Hassan, Tim Kaine. Oh, wow. Former Hillary Clinton vice presidential running mate, Tim Kaine. Wait, is that who that is? No. Not Tim Kaine. That's the other guy. This says Virginia. Her
Tim
guy was from
Walz.
Minnesota. Was his name also
Well,
Kaine? I'm
Walz.
drunk. Don't listen.
Yeah. Tim Walz.
Tim Walz. Yeah, sorry. At least I had the first name right. Not Tim Kaine. Yep. John Fetterman. Catherine Cortez Masto, Jackie Rosen, and Angus King.
No,
Who's
you were right.
independent
Tim
from
Kaine
Maine, but
was
caucuses with the Dems. Sort of
Tim
like,
Kaine was Hillary's running mate. Tim Walz was Kamala's running mate.
yes, that's what it was. Thank you. Tim Kaine was with Hillary. Walz was with Kamala. Both didn't make it to the White House for various reasons. Okay, so which one of them are not running again or are retiring? Dick Durbin, he's not running for re-election in 2026. Shaheen also retiring at the end of her term. The rest, none of them are up for re-election in 2026 based on current term schedules. Oh, so maybe that means they are running, but not in 2026. Not sure
That's
how to
probably
read
what
into
it is.
that.
They're probably in an off year or something weird with their state.
Yes. So the defectors are either retiring or not at risk of a 2026 campaign. Suggests they have had more political flexibility to break with their party on the deal. Yeah. So I may have been incorrect about that, but whatever the case, none of them are up for re-election in this next year, which at the
So
very
that lesson
least
tells us that we
means
cannot have
maybe
a
they don't
Tim
run.
as
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Democrats can no longer have Tim as a vice presidential candidate. Yeah. No one named Tim.
no one named Tim.
Hey, whatever works.
So
All right. So
a train is
Dick Cheney
blowing
died.
their horn
Nancy
like right
Pelosi's
outside my
retiring.
window.
Oh, a car?
No, a train. I have a train track like 50 feet behind my house. And I'm wondering if
wow. You
someone's
live
on a.
next to the train.
I do. It's being very loud. I'm wondering if there's someone on the tracks. Because they'll blow it when they go through town, but it's only usually once as they pass the one central area we have. But that train guy was going off.
Hopefully someone named
You're
Tim
just-
near you didn't hear us dissing all the Tims and decide to end it. You have a purpose, Tim. It's just not to be the vice president. Get off the tracks. I think you might have missed this conversation, Shannon. So, what do you think about Democrats um, making headlines telling the military to refuse illegal orders, Trump calling them seditious, and then basically threatening killing them, that they could face execution for telling members of the military this?
But that's the oath they take, is not to do any illegal orders. So I don't see what they did as sedition. Because, I mean, Pam Bondi came out and said all orders from the president are legal, which is not true. Which is why we have things like the Geneva Convention. But yeah, no, I think Trump's just unhinged. I with calling the reporter piggy the other day to now threatening to kill people, to swastikas and nooses are no longer considered hate symbols.
By
I
the Coast Guard. I read that. Yeah.
by the Coast Guard, yeah. And just the whole bombing of all the boats. That's just weird. That's private. I
But
mean, we have.
legal. We covered this in the part of the show that you were not here for. So,
Oh, I'm
just to
sorry.
reiterate, no, it's not your fault. That's how social audio works. Trump could invade Venezuela tomorrow and it would be legal. He could invade the UK tomorrow, as Bjorn pointed out, and it would be legal. Congress really is about length of military conflict, not initiating military conflict. I mean, Congress can also do that, as we saw with the Iraq War. When Hillary voted for it, I believe Barack Obama did not. And that's basically the difference in those two people, aside from marketing. That's basically the difference. They're the exact same thing. Either Biden in there as well. Basically the same president, or for Hillary, would be president. So that's why I question this, is because I you know, I don't think
Why did
Trump
we
would
just give them
order a massacre of
$40 billion?
civilians.
Uh,
Say it again.
I said, why did we just give them $40 billion if we're just going to go to war with them?
I thought we gave that
Didn't we
to,
give?
was it Argentina, not
Oh, I thought it
Venezuela?
was Venezuela that we gave.
Let me look that up, but I believe that was another Latin American country. How dare you mix them, Shannon? Um, did we just give billions to Argentina? Asking ChatGPT, the source for everything useful, or Venezuela. I believe it was Argentina, or at least it wasn't Venezuela.
Yeah, Trump administration plans to divert 40 million in aid to Venezuela's opposition. So I don't know who would that be against Maduro
Oh,
or
okay. That might be something else. And certainly, if that's the opposition, that's a horse of a different color. But the U.S. Treasury is doing a $20 billion currency swap with Argentina's central bank. That means Argentina can exchange pesos for U.S. dollars. According to the Treasury Secretary, this is not a bailout in the traditional sense, but a way to stabilize Argentina's currency. The money for this comes from the Exchange Stabilization Fund, a fund that the Treasury manages for currency interventions. Well, okay, to be fair, if they have an actual fund for that. And uh, the Treasury Secretary has pledged that U.S. taxpayers won't lose money on this deal. It seems like that's probably not the case, but he says that nonetheless. On top of the swap, the U.S. is working to put together another $20 billion financing package via private banks and sovereign funds. That does not necessarily mean the U.S. is just handing out money. This part is supposed to be more market based, but it's being coordinated by the Treasury Department. If that goes through, so I guess it hasn't happened yet, total support could be on the order of $40 billion. U.S. officials justify it by calling Argentina a systematically important U.S. ally, and instability there could ripple through global markets. There's also a geopolitical angle. Some see this as a part of broader U.S. influence in Latin America, which certainly we've tried to do over the decades. Critics point out the timing. The support comes just ahead of a major election in Argentina, which I believe, no, I'm not sure. Did that just happen or is that coming up? Whatever the case, the guy in Argentina, Trump likes him. The U.S. does provide humanitarian assistance. Yeah, I saw that. I'll bring that up. The U.S. does provide humanitarian assistance to help Venezuelans, and neighboring countries dealing with its refugee crisis. According to a congressional report, over 2.9 billion has been committed in recent years for humanitarian aid related to Venezuela. So if there's more money going to Venezuelan opposition, we can try to dig that out, but I don't see that here. And yes, let's get to this article you just tweeted. Appreciate that. What's not to like? Sheena does my
the
work for me.
Argentina elections just happened. And
Yeah, I thought they had happened.
Milei, Milei, Milei won. That's who Trump was backing.
Yeah, that's the guy Trump likes. All right, let's bring this up here. Okay, from NBCWashington.com, the authority on everything Argentina. This is dated October 16th. So, a little old, but let's go with it. The Trump administration is looking to provide an additional $20 billion in financing for Argentina, and it talks about the mix that we heard from ChatGPT. That would be a total of $40 billion, like we heard, to bolster the nation's collapsing currency. And then talking about the guy who won the election, if he loses, we are not going to be generous with Argentina. The opposition in Argentina was pretty critical. Former President Cristina Fernandez, who at the time in October was under house arrest after a corruption conviction, wrote on social media, "Our agreements depend on who wins elections. Argentines, you already know what to do." So advocating to vote against the guy who I believe did win the election. He's got a good
Make a musical out of it?
haircut. He's got a lot of hair on that head, unlike
He's got a
Donald
lot
Trump.
of hair. No, they're going to make a musical. Come on, like Evita. Come on. That's Argentina.
Yeah. Don't cry for me, it's Argentina. I have $40 billion from the U.S. This is why I don't sing on the show. Yeah, let me know if you find anything about Venezuela. I did not see anything specifically about new money going to Venezuela.
Venezuela. I don't know.
But whatever the case, Trump
Stupid.
obviously rewards people who play ball with him. It's not anything new.
Wait,
MC
what did I
Funk
put?
has requested
Argentina?
to speak. I'm just trying to. I think Twitter is kicking me in the nuts right now.
Oh, I hit the wrong thing. Sorry. Wait.
So
Where
yeah,
did it go? I put
okay. You posted
Venezuela.
the thing about Argentina. Maybe if there's something else from Venezuela. It's not what I'm seeing, but maybe I'll find it. MC Funk, I have accepted your request to be a speaker. I'm also going to invite you.
No, I'm good, man.
Hopefully, we can get MC Funk in his house.
Do you guys have me?
Hey, there it is. How you doing? Great to hear from you.
Yeah.
How are you? Yeah, we hear you.
Good, man. It is. It's been a minute. Yeah. So this whole unlawful order and the video thing. Um, I think it is not nearly as black and white as, of course, everybody likes to make it. And the I think the whole like calling them like traitors and seditious, like that's bad. The Of course, but I also think the way that was conveyed and the messaging was not great in the video itself because yes, the UCMJ, which is like the military's kind of legal code, does have, like that is in there that there is a duty to disobey an illegal order, but the burden is very very high for that, and um like it needs to be like extremely obvious, manifestly illegal, and the default is kind of following an order that's given to you, and the kind of I think just saying like, oh, you have a duty to disobey illegal orders, and yes, while that is true, um who decides that is an illegal order? Like the burden of proof is very very high, and I think just kind of putting that out there in a broad message to like kind of every service member, yes, they know that is part of their oath, and that they take, but um, kind of seeding that idea to question every order, I think is like very problematic. So yes, like the legal duty is there to disobey an illegal order, but like that is not an easy snap call, and I think it is. I think it like seeds a lot of confusion to kind of presume that that's something they should always be thinking about.
Yeah, I
But
was having this argument with Bjorn earlier, who was on stereo and is no longer with us. But those were basically my points, but you said it even better than I did. So thank you for that. I'm worried the Democrats, even with their recent victories in the recent elections, are wasting whatever energy, money, and political capital they have after a devastating loss over the shutdown on things that, yeah, were not well targeted, and I don't see a need for. My gist with Bjorn that we haven't already just mentioned again now was that if they wanted to make this point, they should have been very specific, because the president, and especially Trump in the White House, can do almost whatever they want with the military. It's really a question of time that Congress comes into play. And even then, we went through several examples of the presidents in the last 40, 50 years who even exceeded what seemed to be the time limits that they have. Bjorn asked, well, what if President Trump invaded the UK? And my answer would be, it would be legal. That's the power the president has as the commander in chief. So I agree with you. And please tell me more. If the Democrats wanted to say something very specific, very context based, that would have been better than what we got for the reasons that you outlined.
yeah, I think like just leaving it open to interpretation, I think is the messaging could have been much more specific if it was like, for example, if you are asked to do this, and I think it, it's hard to squeeze that into a soundbite in an ad, and but and I get the overall kind of. I think the broader messaging was to try to kind of reinforce the idea that we have a kind of law and order based system with checks and balances, that we are not in fact a like just pure authoritarian, despite how, despite the perception of how it might be being treated right now. And I think that's probably the concept that was put out there, and it was like, how here's how that manifests by being able to say no. But like it is not a like general thing. It's there are very specific cases, and like there is a very high risk, like legal risk to, like, if that is not like a very strict obvious case, that like the if
Legal and also life
like court
risk,
martials.
because troops can be, yeah, court martial. They can be put to death for not following orders.
Well,
They could
they wouldn't be
spend
put to
a
death.
very long time in prison. They could be, though. I mean, it is a technical option.
It's context matters, like with everything. But yeah,
Fair.
that's my
Yeah.
thoughts
Well,
on it. Like,
unlikely. Um,
I think the concept is sound, but the delivery was poor, and like seeds confusion that is more problematic than the messaging. Um, and like seeding that ambiguity and confusion. But the reaction to it was also bad. So not a lot of good came out of that on like any aspect.
yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I don't see the good that came out of this because of the broad reach of the message from Democrats, and of course the terrible and very easy to predict terrible response from one President Trump. Okay, so that's good. That's valuable. I appreciate your comments on that. Did you see, Shannon brought this to my attention during the show, and I really appreciate her doing that. Marjorie Taylor Greene has announced she is resigning effective, I believe, January 5th of 2026. And we looked it up. There will be a special election because the seat needs to be filled before it comes up for its normal election cycle. Do you have thoughts about this?
So yeah, the of course she's not going to actually write out her term. So which basically means like, well, is when when she's no longer in a like favorable spot, then she's going to cut and run instead of like actually writing out her term. And I think that's pretty shitty, frankly. Um and but Yeah, I mean, I'm no fan of her, and like not just politically, but I think she, I think she, I think there are very few things that she really stands on principle on, and like the Epstein thing seems like certainly one of those that she did, and that's great. But I think that is common with politicians in general, though, that kind of what is politically convenient at the time is where they stand, and I don't have a whole lot of respect for that. So and kind of ditching her kind of elected office when she's no longer in a kind of more favorable position, I think is a really crappy thing to do rather than write out the term.
I don't disagree with that general assessment. I think I have warmed up to Marjorie Taylor Greene over the past several weeks, but we'll just push that aside. It looks like a Republican would win that special election. And she has claimed, and I don't think this is an outrageous claim, that her safety is now a question after she and Trump are no longer best buds. Is that a somewhat legitimate way out from your criticism of not fulfilling her election promise?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like you're elected for the. I get in general. I really don't. I don't like lawmakers leaving in the middle of their term. Like I really don't. Um, because they're kind of elected for a reason, and like if there are in some contexts, I think that makes sense. But I think in her case, it seems pretty clearly tied to like, well, okay, like they don't like me, like the other people in my party don't like me because of some stances I took. So I'm gonna cut and run now, rather than like, okay, like it the job matters most when it's hard, not when it's easy. Like when you're not the most popular person in the room because you're like taking a position that you believe in, then like that's when it matters to stay.
So, if she is replaced by a Republican, which looks very likely, is this a win for the Democrats? Because that Republican is probably not going to be as crazy as Marjorie Taylor Greene, despite warming up to her the last several weeks. She's out there.
Why?
Or
What are
is
you
it
basing that
worse
on?
because this could be a Trump loyalist? I'm sorry. What am I basing the fact that she's crazy on?
No, no. What are you basing the fact that whoever replaces her will not be as crazy?
Okay, yeah, let me explain that. Thank you for asking for that context. So we were looking at her victory. Apparently she won with more than 60% of the vote. And Shannon, who's still with us, so Shannon, if you want to throw those details out again, Shannon was just guessing that it's probably a gerrymander district with that big of a swing, but I have no thoughts or data on that. So that's why I
Yeah,
was
it was
thinking that a
60.
Republican would probably win.
She won by 64%, and the Democrat got 35. So to swing that big in something
No,
that gerrymandered,
yeah, I'm not saying it won't be a Republican. That's probably likely, but the underlying assumption that they will not be as crazy as her,
that's true.
is
I'm with
is
MC
based on
Funky.
what I
Yeah,
think.
it
Ah,
The
definitely could be.
fair,
Yeah,
fair.
and I
Okay.
think kind of increasingly gerrymandered districts actually invite more of that because like they can they can be crazier, and it's less likely that they have to kind of worry about like getting votes. So um, the increased gerrymandering definitely in turn invites more crazy.
Yeah, and that's fair because obviously makes sense. Marjorie Taylor Greene seemed to ride that crazy train into office. I guess I would say I'm worried if we just assume it's going to be a Republican. At least Marjorie Taylor Greene here towards the end, even though Trump was just like, she's nuts, don't talk to her, and was really putting her down, she was still trying to be like, I think one of her comments was basically, I hope the president and I can work out our differences. So she was the adult, oddly enough, in that exchange as of late. But if someone who comes in who's crazy but doesn't criticize the president, isn't that a loss for the Democrats versus someone who's crazy and I've warmed up to them personally, but does criticize the president at least on certain things?
Well, so I think actually what is maybe more important is less who is less kind of the person that replaces her, and more who replaces her power structure within the party. Who gets elevated to the power position that she held, and because she was a fairly influential person within the party and public figure, so kind of and on committees and whatnot. So kind of her absence means that somebody takes that place. And so, what does the shifting landscape look like? It's probably not going to be somebody who just got elected. So The assumption that it's not going to be who replaces her seat will then replace her role in Congress. That won't be how that works. Because it'll be somebody else with kind of maybe more seniority. So really, I guess the bigger question is when she leaves, who then gets elevated to replace her power position, and that's, I think, more important than the individual that replaces her seat in her district.
Yeah, if Chuck Schumer calls it quits, which boy, hope that happens soon. Whatever leadership positions he holds in different capacities doesn't just go to the person if it's a Democrat who replaces him. You're absolutely right. So thank you for pointing that out. I don't know that this really connects to the Democrats, but I think this is a loss for the Democrats because she is in opposition to Trump, vocally so. She seems reasonable, and Trump never seems reasonable, or at least very rarely, every once in a while. And she's leaving. Best guess a Republican replaces her, who maybe is just as crazy, but more of a loyalist. So I would just say this is yet another thing that the Democrats are not having go their way. It's not as important as losing the shutdown battle, which they totally did crap the bed on that. And it's not as important as wasting political capital with this message to troops like, hey, you don't have to follow illegal orders, whatever that means. We're not giving any real context here. Is this even a useful thing to do right now? But it just, once again, just makes me worry about the Democrats because she was a bit arguably an ally for them because she was opposing Trump, and very likely they're not going to have that. But I've made my point on that. Um, Shannon or MC Funk, it's great to have you guys both here. I'm going to move over to what Shannon tweeted a moment ago. The Trump administration. Oh gosh, wait, never mind. This is from 2019. So yeah, uh,
Oh,
back in
did I?
2019, they were going to give Venezuela's opposition 40 million.
Why did it say something different to me? I double checked the date on that.
Yeah, it says July 2016, July 16th, 2019. Whatever the case, we've given some money to Venezuela. We're giving more money to Argentina.
Argentina?
I guess to tie this back into what we were talking about a moment ago, do we all agree that if Trump invades Venezuela tomorrow, that is legal? I would say clearly so.
Yes.
Is it legal?
Yes.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
legal.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, probably for a brief period of time, until I think at some point then that then becomes like necessary congressional authorization. But that's a good question that I don't really know the legalities of that.
Yeah, we looked this up a little bit earlier. It appears that would be quite legal to the point that Trump could invade the UK tomorrow, and that would also, strangely enough, be legal. And it would also be great retribution for them burning the White House in the War of 1812. I feel like there's still some retribution that has to be delivered on that. Okay, so we have gone more than 2 hours, and that's totally fine. Does anybody else have any other comments on something we've covered or something that we're not thinking about? I'm hoping to do some more shows over the next week as I, like a lot of Americans, have some time off and we'll be home getting really fat, eating delicious food. Might as well do some shows here and there. And MC Funk, we haven't heard from you for a while. Also, Shannon, because of your recovery after your health scare, we've not heard from you a lot in the past couple of months either. So, yeah, what do you guys have on the plate? What can we talk about?
I've been trying to check out of a lot of news lately, to be honest with you, because it's like too chaotic and upsetting. So But I saw you pop up today. I was like, man, I've not talked to Lee in a long time, so I'm gonna hop on.
Is your son's medicine that was denied and you were having to pay out of pocket, but then
Yeah,
shortly after Luigi Mangione killed that healthcare CEO at like 5 in the morning in New York,
yeah,
you resubmitted the request and then they said, "Oh yeah, we'll cover this." Is that still
yeah.
going well?
Well, no, because the insurance situation has changed. So we're back to out of pocket now, but it's fine. But
But
it was
that was a
nice
change on
while it
your
lasted.
end as opposed to the insurance all of a sudden saying we're not going to cover this
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah. So some stuff changed on my job situation, so kind of the insurance situation changed. So, but so yeah, he's it's back to out of pocket, not covered on insurance anymore. So, um, but it was it was nice while it lasted.
Yeah, just go with that as long as you can have it. That was really interesting to hear, and I appreciate you sharing that multiple times. And it was um so counterintuitive, but then when you explained it to me, I was like, no, I mean, after the CEO of a major for-profit
Yeah.
healthcare company
So
is murdered, maybe we
yeah.
don't
So
want this to
for
happen anymore. And so we'll
yeah for I guess for context for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, a particular medication that my son takes. He he had some. It's out of pocket. It's expensive. And it was because like he couldn't take generics and had to take the brand name, and insurance didn't want to cover it. I'd submitted it like 5 or 6 times. They just kept denying it, and it was like $400 a month, um, out of pocket. And then after several months, then the price actually dropped dramatically down to like 140 a month. It's like, okay, that's still like a lot, but that's way better than 400. Um, and did that for a couple of months, and then Luigi killed the that insurance CEO, and I like a few days. It was like a few days after that. I saw some random Reddit post where there was like this whole thread where a bunch of people were like, "Hey, all my stuff that's been getting denied is like instantly getting approved by my insurance right now. So now might be a good time for someone for like if you're dealing with this to try it." And I was like, okay. So I called my pediatrician and my son's pediatrician, and it's like, hey, and they had literally just submitted it like the week prior, and it was denied for like the sixth time. And I called them back up and I was like, hey, could you guys like submit this again? And they're like, well, it's just tonight. And I was like, yeah, but I saw this thing online and people were saying like, and because this just happened, that everything is just getting blanket authorized right now because the insurance companies are like, we're just going to approve everything because we don't want to piss anybody off. And they were like, oh, well, I mean, it's not going to hurt to try it. And they submitted it and it was like auto approved within like, you know, 20 minutes. It wasn't even like go through a review process in a couple of days. It was like an automated system that had just approved it immediately after it had been like, you know, rejected 6 or 7 times. And so, for then like the next 3 years, or the next 2 years, I got to have it for $30, which was nice. But our insurance situation has changed, and now I'm back to 140 out of pocket. So, but yeah, it was just like for some window of time. I don't know how long that lasted. I'm assuming that's probably not the case anymore. But there was kind of this maybe few weeks or 1 month time span right after the CEO was killed, where all the insurance companies were like, "We're going to approve everything because we don't want to piss anybody off because everybody hates us right now." And that was like the window that I got them to approve it.
yeah, it's a fascinating story. Every time I hear it, I'm just like, man, don't think it was on any specific medication, but I should have found a reason to be on something expensive. And then when you mentioned it was $400, immediately I was like, wow, your son was on Ozempic? And I'm like, no, that's not what it was. But yeah, that's the thing that's also really
No, it
expensive
was
and
because
has
he
come down in
specifically
price a
needed the
lot.
brand name. Yeah, it was because it was the
Yeah,
brand name and not
exactly.
the
Yeah.
generic version, and like they would have covered the generic version, but it was like, yeah, he had like really crappy side effects from the generic version. The brand name works great, and but it was like $400. They said no, and then when it dropped to 140, they were still no, and then you know Luigi gunned down the CEO, and they're like, yeah, whatever you want. So like, yeah,
And the
murder's
positive is
bad,
that
but
even
thank
though
you.
your situation, yeah, has changed and you're now paying out of pocket again, it's not $400. It's less than half of what it was.
Well, yeah, and then the price had already dropped before I had got it approved. But yeah.
I'm looking at this story and I know it's not breaking, but we haven't talked about it really on the show. What do you, Shannon and MC Funk, what do you guys think about Mom Donnie? He just visited the White House and spoke with Trump. So maybe I'll bring that up. But
Yeah.
is this going to work in New York? Is this a good thing? Is this going to make Democrat, he calls himself a Democratic or a socialist. It's the Bernie Sanders Democratic Socialist line.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Is this a good thing? What do you guys think about this?
I think it's a good thing. The because I think I do. I think it's a good thing. Even if maybe a lot of things he wants to do, he might not be able to get done. Certainly some of them he will in some capacity. And I think the focus in particular being on the struggles of the kind of everyday kind of resident of New York City, I think really is a good thing. And um, and I think yeah, there are certainly some things that I think he will probably be able to do very good at. I think things around like rent prices probably are not going to uh I don't I have a hard time seeing that pan out, but certainly things like pushing through the free buses and the kind of the trial run for kind of city owned grocery stores with like okay, let's just try like five of them scattered about. Not saying we want to take over all grocery stores, but like let's just like set up five of them, try it out for like a year, see how that works. If it's good, great. If it's not, okay. But I think those are some good ideas, and some of those will actually be able to happen. And I think that's good having that kind of focus and emphasis. And yeah, the people will have complained, or there's been a lot of opposition to specifically with like the free buses, but like the numbers make that work. The numbers really show that there is a like
You
big
want
ROI.
people off the street in New York. You do not want people doing anything other than taking public transportation. I mean, yeah, the numbers in New York
Well, no, it's not just that. It's
City.
the initial
Back, you're in New York
the
State, and you have worked a lot in New York
yeah,
City, as we've talked about on the show.
yeah.
But
But I think the initial assumption and pushback was like, well, if you make buses free, then the buses are just going to be filled with homeless people all the time. It's like, well, no, like on the routes they've done that on, where they kind of did trial runs with that, they basically just had like full ridership all the time, and uh, but there is a like very tangible ROI that you can calculate on like what it costs to provide that versus the kind of then economic returns for the city and kind of increased productivity and tax revenue from just like increased economic output. And so it's like it's one of these things that's really kind of like it pays for itself and it's like a win-win.
I can't remember exactly. It may have been the rent that you were talking about. There are some things the mayor of New York just cannot do. on their own. So yeah, some of these promises require multiple levels, slash, as you described it, probably are not even going to happen. I can't remember the exact details on that, but that's, I think, been a legitimate criticism of some of his policies, is that they're outside. Unlike we're talking about, the president can do basically whatever he wants when it comes to declaring war for a short amount of time. Maybe not declaring war, so I take that back. Engaging in a war, starting a war for a certain amount of time. The mayor of New York City, despite New York City being what it is, has less power. This is from The Guardian. From today, very up to date. It's not as if they were holding hands and skipping down the halls of the White House, but President Trump and New York Mayor elect Zoran Mamdani appeared to get along well in their first meeting. Trump hosted the 34-year-old Democratic socialist who defied early expectations to win the city's Democratic primary, then the mayoral race. And Trump let it be known he was impressed by that, congratulating Mamdani and describing his victory as an incredible race against smart people. I feel very confident that he can do a very good. He stood to his right. The better he does, the happier I am. I will say there's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York. It was a stark change of tune from Trump's comments during the mayoral election when he dismissed the candidate from his own party as a lightweight, that guy that always wore the red hat, and instead endorsed Andrew Cuomo, the independent and former Democratic governor, while branding Mamdani a little communist. It remains to be seen if the good vibes will last between the two political opposites. Mamdani is set to be sworn into office in January. We agreed a lot more than I would have thought, Trump said.
Yeah, I think
I think
Mondani is
that's
he is a
it.
very personable guy, and he is an excellent communicator. And I think like that goes a long way. Um, and I mean, like I don't know if you've seen him on any of the like right wing podcast circuits, but like he is excellent. The in especially in kind of unfriendly territory, if you will. Like he does that very well, and you know, Trump in general is like far more um, in general concerned with the kind of personal interactions with people than the I think um, then like that's what makes him like them or not, is like basically how personal they are, and you know, more so than the specifics of their politics. That's been what I gather from him.
Yeah, along all those things, he just also loves success. He likes people who win. And that certainly describes New York's new mayor.
Yeah, so I think it'll be good, and like it was it was quite something to see the like broader um Democratic establishment, if you will, like raging against him throughout the kind of campaign through the primary. That was quite a sight to see. I think one of
So let's talk
my
about that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
continue.
think one of my like there was this constant kind of like they really latched on to him being a Muslim and tried to like play the anti-Semite flag really high, and it just like it didn't connect, or at least it didn't connect enough. And I think one of my favorite moments with him was in the Democratic primary debate, and they when all of the candidates whereas like where his first, where their first kind of international trip was going to be if they were elected mayor, and every single one of them was like, "I'm visiting Israel. I'm visiting Israel. I'm going to Israel. I'm going to Israel." And he gets to heaven, he's like, "Uh, I'm gonna stay in New York City because that's what I'm elected to do." Like the international trips are not really, um, are not really my purview. I'm like here for the people of New York City, the Jewish people here, the Muslim people here, the non-religious people here. Like that is my purview, not to visit other countries. Yeah, and so I was like, that is a good answer.
Yeah, that's I mean, he's certainly a very intelligent, very well-spoken and calculated individuals. I think it was John Stewart, I can't remember, pointed out that he's always in a oh no, I think it was Bill Maher. He pointed out he always looks great. He's always in a suit. He's always very professional while also still breaking some of the norms, if not all of them, that you get here from the left. So you mentioned a moment ago the Democratic opposition. And Shannon, feel free to jump in. You're in Connecticut, so you're not too far from this as well. Um, what does this mean for the left? Bill Maher, within the last couple of weeks, talked about how dangerous this was for the left because all the data shows that right now the best thing that Democrats can do is be moderate, which I have opposed. I hate Barack Obama because he was moderate and he lied to America to get elected. But right now, when Trump is clearly not stable and doing things that even Republicans thought were not possible today. Maybe it was part of their goal because, once again, the Republicans, they're the party of dreamers. Democrats don't dream and fight for what they want like Republicans do. But to shift back to Mamdani, with him being such a high profile new mayor, soon to be sworn in, and being popular, and being unapologetically socialist, a democratic socialist, but emphasis on socialist. Is this bad for the Democratic Party? I would argue I agree with Bill Maher. This is not where the Democratic Party needs to go. Now, clearly, New York is like no other city in America, like no other city in the world. And this is a special situation. But is it right for Democrats to oppose this movement connected with him or other high profile Democrats slash Democratic socialists? I would say yes. I think the numbers show this is not the path to victory.
I think okay. I think it is I think it is not an exclusive or. And I think I think it is I think it's a mistake to say that there is a path to victory, and that I think the kind of that like the party as a whole needs to do this or that, or I think the the what makes a lot more, I think is probably better to consider is that, like, yeah, don't, the maybe the Democratic Party as a whole doesn't embrace that, but don't don't like kick it in the teeth in the places that it clearly has support, but maybe don't push it in the places that it doesn't, you know. And I think that is maybe more sound.
I agree, MC. What works in New York City isn't going to work. Well, what works in New England isn't, and New York isn't going to work in the South or Midwest.
But I mean, like, in some places it might,
Right.
and the maybe even in some unexpected places, and I mean, heck, Bernie Sanders in Vermont, Vermont is a weird place. The Because it's like this very kind of it, it's like this very like kind of purple place. It's like we love our gays and our
No,
guns. You know,
New
It's
Hampshire
like-
is a weird place. New Hampshire is a weird place.
yeah.
Vermont is not. New Hampshire is weird. New Hampshire, you don't even have to wear a seatbelt. Only
Yeah.
state in the country, no seatbelts, no helmet laws, guns.
Yeah.
New Hampshire is weird.
Isn't New
No, but
Hampshire like live free or die or don't tread on me or
That's
something?
them.
It's got a little independent
It's
craziness
live
going
free or
on there.
die.
But
Yeah.
yes, okay. So maybe there's multiple crazy states in New England, but to MC's point, that was one of the problems with Bernie Sanders was that he was always about it still is get money out of politics. Let's have single payer health care, which is more efficient, all that stuff I always talk about. And will never change in the United States. But at the same time, Vermont likes its guns, as MC Funk just correctly pointed out, and that was something that Bernie Sanders was sometimes criticized on. So then, to connect Bernie Sanders with Mamdani, and not everything works everywhere in the United States. What happens if he is a complete failure? And it works out not at all, and it's just way bad, and he serves one term. um does that set
well,
back
then
his priorities that I generally agree with and I think would be better for the United States, even though if right now Democrats should swing more moderate because that's what all the data shows is going to win elections? Is it is it a worry that he's going to badmouth all of these great ideas that he stands for if he fails, right?
I don't think so. I think that is certainly that is an often talked about concern. Um, the but I don't necessarily think that's the case. But I think it's all just kind of hypothetical speculation, and like, we don't know how much is actually going to fail because a lot of that is a baked-in assumption, that uh, it will fail. And he's actually talked about this quite a bit. That you know the reasons a lot of these things fail is because, and especially in New York and in New York City, and some of these ideas have consistently failed in the past, is from kind of opposition in Albany, which coincidentally is where I live, but that's where the kind of state legislature is. And because a lot of that needs kind of state support, as well. But, he's really kind of said that, like, but a lot of people don't actually try to cultivate the support in Albany. It's just not given to them. It's like, if you actually try to cultivate support there for it, then, like, some of these things can actually become doable. And so that's a particular thing that he's talked about quite a bit. And like, if it works, great, and if it doesn't, then we'll see what happens. But I think that's not really something anybody can really kind of predict the outcome of right now.
I will give it to him that he's more successful than Bernie because Bernie has been the senator from Vermont for decades, and this guy came out of nowhere and arguable, but I think probably also kind of objectively true, is now going to be the mayor of the most important city in the United States. Aside from the fact that Washington D.C. is the seat of our federal government, if you're just looking at a city, um, and what it has and what it offers and people think of it, like, clearly New York to me is the most important city, despite the fact that I'm not a fan of New York generally. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess that's my only worry is that he's going to fail and it's going to, because I think this happened a bit with Bernie, but because Bernie was so opposed by Democratic establishment in the way that we choose a presidential candidate through the primaries and caucuses, on the Democratic side of things, where the Republicans are actually much more democratic in how they choose a nominee than the Democrats are even to this day. I think because perhaps of some of those things and the fact that Bernie was and still is so ever present in government, it wasn't necessarily a failure of his policies. It just showed that his policies couldn't work today for a presidential candidate. So Mamdani, while arguably more successful than Bernie because he actually won the election, not only becoming the primary candidate, but becoming the mayor in the actual election itself. Yeah, I guess that's my big fear is that he's going to give a negative connotation even more than already exists if he fails. And
Sure, but
as
I mean,
NC, I'm sorry, go
the
on.
you I, I hate using kind of cliche phrases, but like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, you know, and just kind of not doing because you're afraid of the damage of it failing will just perpetually be in a state of not doing, you know. So maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but you know, there's only one way to find out.
Yeah, that's fair. And I always, including recently on this show, criticized Barack Obama. I would say rightfully so for not taking more shots, for not pushing for more. Despite the fact that Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, the marketplace is kind of falling apart now and will get worse as we talked to Shannon today and over the last couple of shows, having to choose between rent and more expensive healthcare because the subsidies are likely going to go away, despite the so-called compromise that Democrats took to end the shutdown. It was not a promise. It was just like, yeah, we'll work on this and we'll see where it goes. Um, if Obama had taken longer shots, had switched from field goals to 3 pointers, we would have a stronger Affordable Care Act, a stronger marketplace than we have now. And so, it is a bit two faced for me to criticize Obama, again, rightfully so, and then have fears about Mamdani. But yeah, this is sort of like a startup. It's a promising startup, and we many people want it to succeed, but there's so much stacked against it. You're worried that when this startup fails, no one's going to try it again for a while. It's going to be hard to get those investors to fork out more money after they lost all their money. But of course, only time will tell. And it's New York City. It is a bit like Trump, who claims that connection to New York City, even though a lot of people there don't like him. Is that anything's possible in New York, right? They have songs written about it. So I wish him the best. I don't expect a lot of success. I don't expect Democrats to say nice things about him. Maybe they'll bide their time and just kind of see how it's going to work out. But especially if things start going south, he is going to face opposition not only from the right and the middle, but he's going to face opposition from the left as well. That's my prediction. Um, One thing I've been paying attention to, maybe if we shift to something else, and once again, MC Funk or Shannon, feel free to throw out some hot takes. The CDC has changed vaccine and autism language on its website, and RFK Jr. admits that they did that because he told them to. So let me bring this up from the New York Times. This is just more of the same from RFK, but it is a substantial change and deepening of his positions because now it's in writing on the official website. Let me share this on my Twitch and Rumble streams. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Has just said in an interview that he personally instructed the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to abandon its long-standing position that vaccines do not cause autism, a move that underscores his determination to challenge scientific consensus and bend the health department to his will. The website now says the claim that vaccines do not cause autism is not evidence based. However, Mr. Kennedy
Uh,
in the interview acknowledged that large that large scale epidemiological studies of the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine found no link to autism, and that studies of the mercury based preservative thimerosal had also shown no link. However, he cited gaps in vaccine safety science. He says he ordered the CDC to change its guidance in part because high quality, large studies have not been conducted to examine a potential link between autism and other shots given in the first year of life. Those include the hepatitis B vaccine and a combination shot that protects against diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis, commonly known as whooping cough. In his view, sweeping statements like vaccines don't cause autism are unproven and have been deployed by public health leaders who want to ease parents' fears. He says he is not saying vaccines cause autism. He is simply saying there's no proof that they don't. Well, okay. It's just a lie. The whole thing about vaccines have been tested and there's been this determination made. The phrase vaccines do not cause autism is not supported by science. It is highly unusual for a health secretary to personally order a change to scientific guidance. Former CDC officials say that such changes are usually initiated by agency scientists, and in some cases, might go to the secretary's office for review. Mr. Kennedy's intervention flows out of his 2 decades of vaccine activism and demonstrates his intense interest in the topic, as well as other health issues, including the cancellation of insurance subsidies under the Affordable Care Act, which is currently swirling in Washington, D.C. Experts, get this. Experts say Mr. Kennedy is correct in a narrow sense in saying that certain studies have not yet been done, but they say he is also asking for a level of proof that is difficult to achieve. One expert says you can't prove that Coca-Cola doesn't cause autism either. Most mainstream public health leaders, including an official at the American Medical Association, a former CDC director, and the chairman of the Senate Health Committee, say the question of whether vaccines cause autism has been settled. Mr. Kennedy's critics say he is cherry picking facts and seeking studies to confirm his own predetermined conclusion. So this isn't great. I think this is an important step that he has taken that is different than some of the other ones. Do we have thoughts on this? MC Funk, your father,
I don't think anybody is
Shannon,
surprised by this. You know,
not a father,
I think everybody
not a
kind of
mother.
saw this coming. I think everybody kind of saw this coming, right?
Are we off the castration causes autism, or is it just the vaccines now? Oh,
Yeah, like I said, this is more of the same. Yeah, no, we talked about this, Shannon. It's not. It was circumcision because when babies get circumcised, they're given Tylenol, and that was the whole Tylenol debacle.
because there's definitely no females that have autism anywhere ever, like me.
Well, that's a good question. Let me ask ChatGPT. I don't know. Is there a discrepancy in?
Because if it's we gave the boys Tylenol because of the circumcision, that would mean there would be no girls that have autism, right? Because girls don't usually go under circumcision.
Yeah, luckily that's the case. Yeah, I see the logic there. I would guess to try to say the Tylenol thing was true, you would have to have more boys, like significantly more boys, diagnosed with autism. Oh, wow. And this is okay. This is from ChatGPT. Let me share this. More boys get diagnosed with autism than girls. The ratio is held for decades, though researchers are constantly trying to untangle exactly why. Right now, the best data points to roughly 3 to 4 boys diagnosed for every one girl. This doesn't necessarily mean autism itself is that much more common in boys. A big part of the story is diagnostic bias. Girls often present differently, more social masking, fewer stereotypical behaviors, better camouflage. Their symptoms get missed, mislabeled, or written off as anxiety or shyness. When clinicians use deeper screening tools instead of surface level observation, the gender gap narrows. That suggests girls are underdiagnosed, not absent.
Yeah, I didn't
So,
get diagnosed 3 years ago.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were just making an example. So you have been
Oh, no,
diagnosed with autism.
I didn't diagnosed until like 3 years ago. Yeah, autism
And what led to
wasn't.
that diagnosis?
Is huh?
So, you're not 10. So, if you're diagnosed as an older adult as autistic, and especially here as a woman, which is often, according to just pure numbers, less common, but perhaps less common because of the reasons I just read, it's just missed, it presents differently, it's explained in different ways. How did you 3 years ago get diagnosed as being autistic?
New psychiatrist gave me a new test instead of just like just like the test they usually give you when you go in is like for major depressive disorder or an anxiety disorder. They give you like this little test where you answer questions, but he gave me a different one and then started asking me about my childhood and hyperfixating on things and how I did in school and just went in a different direction than all the other psychiatrists I've had in my life before and social workers.
Nickelodeon just left us a message over on stereo. Thank you, Nickelodeon. We'll get to that in a moment. But this is quite a discovery. I want to explore this a little bit, and then we'll check in over on stereo. Stay with us. So, did that change anything for you, other than maybe I'm just extrapolating here. Maybe you're like, oh, this is justification for how I felt throughout my life, or this explains some of the previous and current behavior in my life. But like, did it change anything? Are you treated differently now from a medical perspective? How have things changed, if at all, in the last 3 years?
They didn't do a change in medication. It just gave me more answers onto how I am like I am, I guess. It wasn't just because I'm on stuff for depression and anxiety already. I don't need to add an additional upper to my thing for ADHD, but no, and autism. But it gave me more explanation on why I was do certain things or did certain things like when I was in school that always had to be specific ways for me. Like I
I
think we
want
were
to
talking
continue
about
down
food.
this really quickly. I'm sorry to interrupt. MC Funk has posted in my Discord server. He has to drop off now, and it was great to be part of the show. Yes, MC Funk, it was great to have you. Appreciate you, and I hope to have you again soon. Join the Discord server by going to bit.ly/NEWZ debate. Continue, Shannon.
Yeah, like I think we were talking about food one show, and like I used to get really mad because I have now it's the autism that the psychiatrist explained to me, but like I always eat my eggs over easy. Has to be over easy. Can't break the yolk, and I have to eat it in a very specific way. I eat all the white around the outside. Then I gently pick up the yolk, and I have to put it in the toast, and then I squish the toast. It has to. It's a big procedure. And like my dad would think it was funny to poke the yolks, and it would make me cry, and I never understood why. But that's why. It's because just my breakfast meal had to be a certain way. My pancakes cannot be on the same plate as my eggs. My like if I got pancakes with eggs, the pancakes or French toast has to be separate. The maple syrup can never touch my eggs. But I'm like that with a bunch of different foods, but that's like one specific one that I can point to.
I was gonna say if that's a sign of autism, I got to get a test done because I also like gooey eggs. Um, I don't want my syrup touching anything other than the pancakes. I feel like that's reasonable. I I gotta get a test done. No,
So
so like
even
you were
though it all
saying,
has
this
the
hasn't
same
changed thing. I'm sorry, continue.
even though it all goes to the same place in my stomach, and I know it doesn't matter. It can't touch on my plate. I can't see it on my plate. It has to be on a separate plate. My ketchup, I like if I have home fries or hash browns, I make a little indent on one corner of the plate on the hash browns, and I put my ketchup in there, and I dunk my potatoes in it. I can't have it like spread on top. It's my plate has to be set up in a
I don't
very
know.
specific
It
order.
seems to me like you're just someone who likes organization, and I don't fault any of
Well, I mean,
this.
I'm
I
just
do things similar, but maybe not as deep as you've just described. So, was there any smoking gun? Was there anything that you said that was either told back to you like, "Oh, this was a really good indicator," or something you thought really hit home? The idea that you needed to have a diagnosis as being autistic.
no, no. I mean, it was a shock to me actually until we started exploring more of my childhood and like schooling and stuff. Like, I can do awesome in things that I really care about, but if I don't care about them, I don't really put any effort into it at all, at anything.
Shannon,
Like, I
I
can get
know
like
I've said this before, but you're literally describing me. So I feel like we can party, you and me, with our eggs on separate plates and just talking about things we care about and forgetting everything else. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't know, like my one of my grammar schools I was in, I would read every book on horses. It didn't matter if it was a veterinary's manual or Black Beauty. It just anything on horses. And my like we were doing medieval times in history class, and I was like, "Cool! I will do the Shire horses, which were used for the cavalry and the knights. That's what I will do, and I will hyperfixate on the horses and that, and take it to that direction." But then I got into the medieval times, and I was like, "Oh, what kind of food did they eat?" And then I'd go into the food, and I'd do a deep dive on that, and then over to armor smith and blacksmithing, and go deep into that. So yeah, it's but politics could care less about the medieval time politics because there were no women in it. So what the hell do I care? Usually, the golden
Hey,
age
good
being
point.
Elizabeth. But
Yeah. The further back you go into a lot of subjects, the women just disappear, and yeah, they're like making sandwiches. Like it's unfortunate, but it's true, right? I just asked Chat GPT, how would an adult be diagnosed as autistic? An adult diagnosis is basically, let me know if this is what you went through. An adult diagnosis is basically a structured investigation into how your brain has been wired all along. It isn't a blood test or a brain scan. Well, I knew that. It's a long, careful look at your developmental history, your current behavior, and the patterns that have followed you through life. Here's how it usually works. Start with a clinician qualified to diagnose autism in adults. often a psychologist or psychiatrist. I always forget the difference between those two, who specializes in
MD.
neurodevelopmental conditions. Say that again, Shannon.
Psychiatrist is an MD, is a doctor. Psychologist is only
Ah,
a bachelor's, maybe a master's.
take take that, psychologists. You're not doctors. They'll do a long interview about childhood traits, social patterns, sensory issues, coping strategies, and the quirks you've sanded down or hidden over time. Adults are experts at camouflage, so a good clinician won't just ask how you behave now. They'll dig for the version of you before you learn scripts and survival tactics. They'll run standardized assessments. The common ones are the ADOS 2, a structured interaction designed to reveal autistic communication patterns, and the ADI-R, a detailed developmental interview. These aren't pass fail tests, they're instruments responding the constellation of traits that define autism. If possible, they'll talk to someone who knew you as a child, a parent, sibling, someone who saw the unfiltered version of you. Not required, but very helpful, because autism shows up early even if no one recognizes it. They'll rule out other explanations: ADHD, trauma, social anxiety, OCD, and giftedness can overlap with autistic traits. Competent evaluator teases apart what's core and what's secondary. Finally, they'll look at functional impact. Autism isn't diagnosed just because someone has quirks, it's diagnosed when a particular pattern of communication, sensory experience, and social cognition has shaped your life in a measurable way. When it's done well, an adult diagnosis feels less like someone handing down a label and more like someone finally naming a pattern you lived with for decades. It opens doors to accommodations, therapy options, and maybe more importantly, self understanding. Does that match what you went through, Shannon? I know you've already talked about
Did not,
some of
yeah, they didn't interview
the,
anyone
well,
from my
yeah, this is
past.
how I felt, and it's nice to have that diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I'm not planning on going back to school or anything like that. So, it's just nice to know that it wasn't just childhood trauma or anxiety or depression, that there was just something else it was always there. It just, you do learn how to, I guess, cope or try to make it look as normal as possible when arranging your breakfast plate. No.
Yeah, it must have been nice when you're like, finally, I have I have written proof that I'm not just an asshole. This is great. I can show this to people. Hey, I'm Shannon, not an asshole, autistic. Did you take any of these tests? It talks about let me find it, ADI-R or an
I, I would,
ADOS-2.
yeah, it's like it's like they'll ask you a question and then it'll be like, like five bubbles, and it'll be like neutral, strongly agree, and then uh strongly disagree, and then you have the five, and so it's strongly disagree, and then a bubble that's just before that, then neutral, then strongly agree, and then strongly agree. Like, do you describe yourself like they'll is this how, is this something you do? Do you feel like this? It's like a personality test is the closest thing I could compare it to.
It sounds a lot like personality tests I've taken on the internet. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just imagining you're taking the test and it's like, do you A, strongly agree, neutral, strongly disagree, or E, I'm autistic? And then you just choose I'm autistic for each one. And it's like, congratulations. Here's your certificate. Okay, so you took this sort of personality test. the clinician asked you a bunch of questions. Did this take weeks? Did this take several sessions? How long, from what you remember,
Oh, it was
would you
several
say like the
sessions.
assessment began to here's your certificate, you are autistic?
No, there was no certificate. No, it was definitely, it wasn't just like, oh, you took this test, you're autistic, we're done. No, he did more in depth. Uh, in the sessions we did, he did more in depth. It was definitely over, God, 6 or 8 months, maybe longer. He moved to a different facility now, though, so I don't have him anymore.
Well, the good work was done. So it's like a passing angel. You know, they do what they can and then they move on. You know, somebody else. I feel like
Yep.
that's a TV show on NBC. Ha- have you shared this with people and they've been like, "Oh yes, of course." Like, have you shared this and what has the reaction been if so?
No, not really. I mean, I doubt anyone in my family would know what autism is. Um, I don't
Like,
have any brothers
"Hey
and
dad,
sisters, and I
I'm
have.
autistic." And then he looks back at you and he's like, "So you like girls? Like what does this mean?"
I have no brothers or sisters, and uh, two of my aunts didn't have kids. My uncle did, but they're fine. They were never diagnosed with anything either. Early '80s kids, so I don't think anyone in my family would even know the difference between autism or OCD or probably even mentally handicapped. I don't think they would understand the difference. And I don't have the wherewithal to explain it to my 83-year-old father, and I don't talk to my mother, so.
Yes, yes, dad. I like girls. Great. Can you go make me some eggs and put them on a different plate than my pancakes? That's all I really care about. I don't really. Yeah, no, I understand that. That's going to take a lot of explanation, and like you said, you know, it's later in life. So what's the benefit of investing all that time and energy to get people to understand something that, like, you know, they know who you are anyways if they're close to you.
Right.
Wow, that's fascinating. I'm not kidding you. I'm gonna think about like,
Like,
you
I
know,
think another
talking with
point
you,
was I
Shannon,
made is,
and getting to know you. I just thought you were really smart and opinionated. I never thought this at all. And it's like, I'm opinionated. I think I'm smart, and I'm very specific about things and how I like things, and I don't care about so many things that are just like not even on my radar. I know that this is a conversation, so I don't want to take too much from it, but all right, I feel like I need to investigate this myself.
like, earth science was another one that I gave an example of. Like, I hated earth science. Like, learning plate tectonics and shit. Like, I didn't care. I didn't care. Why would I want to learn plate tectonics? I am never going to be a volcanologist or a geologist but I really like the formation of rocks and crystals and stalactites and stalagmites, and so I did really good on the crystal
Gesundheit.
portion, but really crappy on the plate tectonics portion.
Well, the plate tectonics are interesting because I believe Earth is the only planet in our solar system, or even if you count moons, which are basically small planets that just, you know, happen to be stuck in the gravitation of a planet, which is stuck in the gravitation of the sun. I believe we're the only celestial body, if you will, in the solar system that has plate tectonics. So little vote for the importance of plate tectonics here, but I understand what you mean. Like, I will be very fascinated with certain types of science or components of other fields of science where anything remaining after my interest does not matter so much to me. Um,
Exactly.
you know, like our good friend Apostate Nate has talked about how he's like a college English teacher, and that sounds, with all due respect to him, that sounds like one of the worst jobs I could ever have because I care nothing of that. And one of the reasons I like AI ChatGPT is because it helps me and every other human with access to it at being better writers, and basically pushing aside the travesty of having to learn to write well. And you can just give chat gpt ideas and it will write really well for you, especially if you give it unique good ideas, and then it just cleans it up for you. So I think that's a win-win. But for someone like Apostate Nate, who clearly has more interest in that subject than me, it has a different value. But I have to, even as an adult, sort of remind myself. It's not as if I forget, but I have to constantly check myself so that I am aware and I focus more on this awareness that people are different than me, where I am very hyper focused in ways you've just described, but I actually don't like horses. I don't care about crystals, but trade that out for something that I do care about. The way you've described it is very similar to the way that I think and live my life.
I think that's why I could be an EMT, because I only dealt with the patient for the 15-minute ride to the hospital. Then I get to hand them off to someone else. Like, I could never be a nurse or have to deal with them all day during my shift. An EMT, you just go clean them up, bring them in, and you get to leave again.
Yeah, because the caring part that you just described takes a lot more emotional work. Where I agree with you, rather than be a nurse, I'd probably rather be a first responder, where you have a very specific set of goals. You have a very specific set of things that you need to do before you get to the hospital. And then you trade it off. And some of the more boring, caring focused, caring intensive tasks completely miss your position, and you're focused on, I don't want to say excitement, but excitement and dealing with very specific tasks for a shorter amount of time. Shannon, this is fascinating. I'm going to ask ChatGPT, what are some specific signs that someone might be autistic? Let's go down this rabbit hole. Number one, you want your eggs on a separate plate from your pancakes. No. Autism shows up as a pattern, not a single trait. What makes it tricky is that adults often reshape their behavior to survive socially, so the classic signs get buried underneath learned coping strategies. Still, certain threads tend to show up again and again. And I hope that's the case, because otherwise, if it's not somewhat identifiable across different cultures, different fields, different experiences, then what does it even mean, right? Kind of like activist. You've heard me rally about my hatred of the term activist because it has no definition, and most people could probably be called an activist for one thing or another. Someone might be autistic if they've always felt like conversations are happening on a frequency they don't quite pick up. That can mean missing subtext, overthinking small talk, or needing time to recover after social events because the whole thing feels like running an emotional translation engine in the background. There's often a sensory edge to life. Lights that others barely notice feel blinding. Certain sounds feel like needles. Fabrics, food textures, or unexpected touches can trigger a full body recoil. It's not pickiness, it's the nervous system taking everything way too literally. Routines offer stability. I'm someone who likes routines. I like tracking. I use my calendar way more than most people. A day runs better when the steps are predictable and unexpected changes knock a person sideways. It doesn't have to be a rigid scheduling, though I like that. Sometimes it's just a strong preference for sameness because the world is loud enough as it is. Communication quirks tend to appear. Some people talk in deep monologues about things they love. Damn it, as I'm talking about a deep monologue on the social audio show that I've run for multiple years. Others speak very sparsely and bluntly. Many rely on scripts for social situations without even realizing it. Humor can be unusual, dry, literal, or unexpectedly sharp. Special interests are another hallmark. Oh, yeah, Shin and I were just talking about this. It's not just liking something, it's falling down, it literally says a rabbit hole, and happily living there, absorbing every detail until a knowledge forms a little universe of its own. There can be trouble interpreting facial expressions, tone shifts, or the vague social dance people are somehow born knowing. Some adults get very good at faking it, but it's exhausting in a way neurotypical people rarely understand. Neurotypical, neurodiverse. Congratulations, Shannon. You are now neurodiverse with a certificate. An internal element shows up too. Chronic confusion about why social rules feel so inconsistent, why friendships are difficult to maintain, or why navigating group dynamics feels like trying to decode an alien treaty. That's a weird way to put it. Thanks, ChatGPT. None of these signs alone means someone is autistic. Together, they form a pattern that has been present since childhood, even if it was masked or mislabeled. The closer researchers look, the more they uncover about how many different ways a human brain can be wired. Wow. So I think this is interesting, but the problem with this, do you agree with me, Shannon? The details
What
that I
I don't.
just read from when I asked ChatGPT, what are some. Sorry, say that again, Shannon?
Oh, I said it was definitely interesting. What do you mean by confusing? Or
Yeah, yeah. So this is all very interesting and it makes sense to me. Do you agree? The problem with this, it starts off autism shows up as a pattern, not a single trait. What makes it tricky is that adults often reshape their behavior. Still, certain threads tend to show up again and again. The way it describes this, I feel like nearly every single person could fall into some of these categories. It's like asking, do you feel tired sometimes? Do you sometimes feel like your attention is all over the place? Do you find it hard to concentrate? Do you like certain topics more than others? My point is that without being very specific, which I understand is hard to do for something like the autism spectrum, it makes it sound like, you know, it's like if you read about the signs of cancer or something, or,
right, right.
like
It's
it's
like
like,
a
oh
web.
my God, I have cancer. Well, I mean, there are certain signs that are so common that, a lot of people could fall into them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of broad based
Yeah, you
spectrum. The
mentioned WebMD. So before AI, right, people would look up their
symptoms. You
so
with
I
me,
guess
Lee?
the answer to this is that, yeah, sorry, I think we have some kind of delay over on Twitter, so maybe we'll just wrap up the show rather than trying to fix that. It's been happening a lot lately. I'm not sure why. I guess my criticism of this is actually kind of solved by the experience that you had, Shannon. You talked about how this took months and it took a very long time to get the diagnosis, and that makes sense because some of these recurring patterns are things most people would probably fall into, and so it has to go a little bit deeper. I'm not surprised that you talked about things that also could be described as ADHD or OCD or some other diagnoses. So a lot of this probably has some bleed over. It's like one of those Venn diagrams where some of this stuff shows up in autism. It also shows up in ADHD. It also shows up in OCD, where the three circles meet in the middle. But as you talked about, um, getting that diagnosis was very rewarding, as it justified, the life you've lived. And even though it may not help you so much as an adult, it's still worthwhile. And it sounds like you're glad that this diagnosis took place.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was more because he was a student that actually he wasn't. He was working on his doctorate to become a psychiatrist. He was still a psychiatrist, but working on his doctorate. Like it's a like the place I go. My main doctor is the teacher, and then the students trade off like every 9 months or so. You get a new student head doctor. And it was the student that actually started me down this path because he was interested because I have the nerve disorder already with the complex regional pain syndrome. And that's when he started questioning me about my past because I also have childhood trauma, but and a lack of fear response. So he was pretty interested in me as a study case for his doctorate.
I hope you're in a book somewhere now. You know, that's that's always the goal, right? If you have some sort of student who's under supervision by a doctor and they're working on some sort of
I
research or
know you're
something,
muted,
like,
right, Lee?
yeah. I'm Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I tried to mute myself to solve the timing issues. Sometimes with different apps and things, even if it sounds like it's running smoothly, they'll be catching up, and it's sort of like a download. It'll finish after a certain amount of time, but it's not the same speed the entire time. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. And I've gotten really good at hearing that when someone's speech speeds up a little bit, I can tell it's artificial. They're not just talking faster, and the app is trying to correct. So we're both at the exact same time. Someone could go a little slower because of slow internet, but then once the internet kicks in, try to make up for that and go a little bit faster. So yeah, that was me trying to adapt to that. But final thought here. I'm really, really happy that you got this diagnosis, and I am interested in looking into this for myself. And I hope you made it into some kind of publication. And maybe I also can aim to be in some sort of publication. I feel like this is something that's worth writing about because so many young kids are diagnosed with ADHD, autism, whatever it is. And that is happening now, I think, because just like with kids identifying as transgender now more than in the past, I think in the past, the number was lower than probably the data would indicate if there was able to be an investigation in the past as much as we have them now. At the same time, I feel like a lot of kids are jumping on the bandwagon, and without pressures, particularly from the left, looking at you, my fellow lefties, and all of these stories of people coming out, it's the popular thing to do. But as adults, a lot of people missed this excitement around mental health, around diagnoses of different kinds, and around people, feeling that they can identify gender wise however they want. So, what all that means for adults is I feel like this is a really fascinating situation where people who maybe, if they grew up today as children, would have been caught quicker, would have had more opportunities to be diagnosed. And for many different reasons, that was not the case when they were young. So, you and I both being adults, yeah, that's a fascinating idea of diagnosing these things now which could have been caught previously if we had as much emphasis and as much attention to these sort of issues as we do today. And probably, if the trends continue, we'll continue to have even more emphasis going into the future. Of course, as I alluded to a moment ago, that leads, I think, to more diagnoses and people feeling that they're a different gender more than perhaps actual data and trends would lead us to think the numbers would be. But this is a problem with anything. We've talked about this with food stamp misuse, or Medicaid misuse, or unemployment misuse. There's always going to be some people who maybe get slash take advantage of those programs when they shouldn't. But it doesn't mean that the programs overall are not helpful and not useful to have these kind of diagnoses. So let's end the show
Right.
now. This has been really, really cool, Shannon. Thank you for sharing this with us towards the end of the show. I want to investigate this more going forward when possible, but I want to give you a final thought, and then I will play a message from Stereo, and then we will end the show.
No, I agree with you that it's probably overdiagnosed now. I mean, it didn't appear, autism didn't even appear in the DSM until 1980. By that time, I was 6. And going to a psychiatrist just was not an option. My parents were, if you're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about type parents, then, oh, let's give a hug out to this. But yeah, it took me till, God, I think I was like 35 before I would go to a psychiatrist. So, yeah, it just wasn't a thing when I was growing up. It didn't have those people to talk to. It wasn't like that. And it wasn't tested for in schools, at least not in the Catholic school that I went to. I mean, we still had corporal punishment. So, yeah, but it was interesting to find out. Do you know when you're going to do your next show, Lee?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will post when I figure that out, as I always try to do. I will try to be a little bit more aware of posting now that we're moving into Thanksgiving week and I have a little bit more time. I would like to do lots of shows over the next however many days, as I have less work than most. I have less work than normal, like most Americans. But yes, I do not know specifically. So I will post that on Twitter. I will post that on my Discord server. And all those links are at bit.ly/NEWZ debate. So to answer your question, Shannon, probably soon, but I will have to give everyone an update on that. Once again, big thanks to Shannon for this final share. This has been really, really cool and interesting and enlightening, and has made me think about, hey, maybe I should look into this for myself. Also, want to thank MC Funk, who we have not heard from a lot. His son is growing, and he's spending a lot of time with his family. And it sounds like he may have had a work change or something. So maybe we'll get an update from him. Big thanks, of course, to Ron, who joined us more towards the beginning of the show, as well as everybody else who joined us over on Twitter Spaces as listeners, and people who joined us as over on Stereo's listeners, as well as Bjorn, friend of the show and Patreon supporter, who joined us for a significant chunk of the show early on. Speaking of Stereo, I'm going to jump over to Stereo and play one message from Nickelodeon.
Yo, what's up, guys? When you practice circumcision, be careful with your wee-wee, because there are some cases where they cut off the penis and all that, so yeah, be careful.
I'm not sure if that was just referring to our earlier discussion of circumcision and Tylenol and RFK and vaccines, which led into the discussion of autism, or if he was talking about be careful because a bad circumciser might just cut off your wee wee. We'll have to leave that one to ambiguity and take it as you want. Big thanks to Shannon, everybody else that I just mentioned, and Nickelodeon. Sorry we didn't get to your message earlier. I feel less sorry after actually hearing the message. But that message was left right as Shannon was talking about her autism diagnosis. And boy, I was hyper focused. See what I did there? I was hyper focused about the autism discussion. And I realized, hey, maybe I should look into this too.
Don't worry if he's still listening. I don't have a penis. I'm a girl. I'm good.
Yeah, because you didn't take his words to heart, and yeah, someone cut it off during that circumcision. I just love the joke I made about your dad, where if you told your dad you're autistic, and he was like, so you like girls? Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna take that one to the bank. I'm gonna have to write that down and use that many times in the future.
That's it. For any word you don't understand, just say it means you like girls now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, did you know that it can't be proven that vaccines don't cause autism? Wait. So do vaccines make you like girls? Yeah, that's exactly right. Vaccines make you like women. All right, that's gonna do it. Big thanks, Shannon. Thanks for the reveal. That was fascinating. You are perhaps the most interesting woman in the world. It is an onion that continues to get peeled, and it's more fascinating the further you get to the core, which may or may not have plate tectonics. Just tied it all together. Thank you so much, Shannon. Have a great rest of your day. Hopefully, we'll have more shows in the next coming days. I'll post about that on Discord and Twitter. Until then, everybody, have a great rest of your holiday. And if you don't hear from me, have a great Thanksgiving, however you choose to celebrate it. I'm not making a liberal woke joke. Thanksgiving for many people can be a very traditional Thanksgiving where they do everything you think they do, and they think there's nothing wrong with that. Other people err more on the let's celebrate indigenous culture and recognize the wrongs and all that stuff. And then still, there is a large third group where Thanksgiving is just time you don't have to work. And by golly, that's something we can all celebrate. So have a good holiday, whatever that means to you. And hopefully, I'll be talking with you sooner rather than later. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.